It's Free Talk Live. We're doing a live Saturday episode of the program. Phones, of course, are open, as always, and you can bring up anything that you want to discuss. But right now, calls will be given preference if you have a question for the guest that I'm about to introduce. But first, in the studio tonight, you've got Ian.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Lord Kickass is here.
We're going to be starting out the show, continuing our coverage of what's been going on in Ottawa, Canada, where for the last 2 weeks solid, there have been, I don't know how many hundreds, if not thousands, it's hard to really know. There have been tens of thousands of people over the last 2 weeks, maybe hundreds of thousands that have come through Ottawa and have participated in this, but there are at least many dozens of truck drivers, professional drivers that have been sitting there, idling their engines basically for 2 weeks solid.
I heard something about honking.
And there's been a bit of honking here and there.
It's really amazing how peaceful this thing's been. I mean,
Yes.
when you have that many people moving into a city and you know that they are looking for any excuse to make this look bad, to make this look like it's a violent thing so that they can bring the troops in and like, hey, you guys need to quash this rebellion.
Yeah,
there's nothing.
our listeners in Michigan might be interested to know that Gretchen Whitmer, who is their tyrant-in-chief of the state of Michigan, is attempting to do something about the trucks block on a bridge.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about the bridge.
So,
There's the Ambassador Bridge between Windsor and Detroit that has been blockaded by some of these truckers, and the police came down on them today. So there's definitely some updates about that. TD Bank is freezing bank accounts up in Canada. They're a Canadian bank primarily. They're freezing bank accounts of the truckers. The government goons have they've instituted what they call state of emergency in not just Ottawa, but now the entire Ontario province.
Oh, really?
So they've been using that as an excuse to crack down on people carrying around gas cans.
Quick question on that.
Yes.
Wasn't there already a state of emergency because of the pandemic?
Well, now it's a double emergency or whatever. So now they can extra violate your constitutional, protections. Or
Capital
whatever.
E for emergency now.
But I want to bring Reed Coverdale on the line with us here. He's on via Jitsi from his current home in Utah. Reed, you're the host of Naturalist Capitalist, which is a podcast, and welcome to Free Talk Live.
Hey, Reed.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, you are a professional driver. That is what you do, but you kind of also have a podcast thing that you do as well. I think you're coming up on your 200th episode tonight.
That's correct. Right after I get off this, my 200th episode will be going live.
Nice.
Congratulations on that. Now, how long have you been a professional driver?
I've had my commercial driver's license since 2013. Yeah, 2013.
Okay.
Because I used to work on power lines, so you had to have the license to drive the trucks around. But I didn't go full-time driving until 2020, just about 2 years ago. I moved out to Utah and started heavy hauling across the western states, basically from the Rocky Mountains to the Pacific Ocean. Just move mining equipment and oversized machinery and occasional weird stuff that's just big and hard to maneuver. So it's been a good job.
And that's what you're still doing to this day?
That is what I'm still doing. Yeah, I'm going to be working there until the end of May.
And you are a New Hampshire native, is that right?
I am, yeah. I was born and raised in New Hampton, and then when I was 7, I moved to Sunapee. And then when I graduated high school, kind of moved to southern New Hampshire near Raymond, and that's where I was working on power lines for several years. And I did a couple trips across the country, just not for work, just for fun. And I really liked the geography of the West, and that's why I ultimately moved out here. But as you alluded to, I'll be moving back to the Granite State soon.
Yeah, I definitely want to get into that because the three of us here on the show, we're all migrants here to New Hampshire. Peakless Mountaineer came from Colorado.
Yeah, no place I'd rather be, especially right now.
Captain Kickass came from Washington State, and I came up from Florida. So we definitely are huge fans of freedom-loving people coming here. But let's start with the Freedom Convoy up in Ottawa. I mean, as a Liberty guy yourself, I'm sure, and a professional driver, I'm sure you've been paying close attention to what's been going on up there. Just do you want to give us like your general thoughts? I mean, what have you been thinking about this or saying
have you
about
been involved? Do you know people?
Yeah, in the last couple weeks.
Yeah, so I know a couple people who've been up there. I had one of them on my show. I do a special once a month called The Four Horsemen. That's kind of my flagship presentation. And we had a special guest who has been up there, and he kind of gave us the lowdown. I'm in full support of the truckers up there. Things have been nuts up there. It's we think we have it bad here. I mean, it's nothing in comparison. Up there, it's like living in Manhattan across the entire country. You need a vaccine passport to go to a restaurant, take a domestic flight, get on a bus, get a job, basically. And then on top of that, they, on January 15th, passed a law that to cross the United States border, you have to be vaccinated as a truck driver. And that affects a ton of Canadian truck drivers. Like 75% of their exports come to the United States. Over 50% of their imports come from the United States. They all, like 90% of Canadians live within 100 miles of the United States border. So there are a lot of Canadian truck drivers who do nothing but drive across the border into the United States, pick up a load, turn around, and come home.
Now, just to clarify, when you say they passed a law, you're referring to the Canadian government gang or the U.S.? Because I had heard the U.S. is also, U.S. is requiring anyone coming from Canada or Mexico to show a vaccine passport, basically, to get in as an international trucker.
Yeah, so it was passed by both governments simultaneously, but it does affect the Canadians a lot more than us because we have a lot more interstate travel. We have a much bigger country. So at least the percentage of our drivers, it affects much less than the Canadians because so many of them are dependent on the US economy.
Do you know if those laws went into effect at the same time? You said simultaneously.
That's usually what that means.
I know, yeah. I mean,
but I mean, like, was it the same day, the same week, or okay? Because I mean,
the same month. I know it was January for both.
It sure sounds like an international conspiracy in that respect.
Well, I mean,
I use the word conspiracy loosely.
It's kind of a tit for tat thing. Once you make Canadians have to get vaccinated to come here, why not make United States drivers have to be vaccinated to go there? It's just kind of, I don't know. They just did it. I don't know if it was the same day, but
I'm just curious if they worked in conjunction to pass it, at the similar time.
Well, you see Biden right now suggesting to Trudeau that he doesn't back down, gets stricter and everything. So I'm sure there was some sort of collaboration going on there. But yeah, I mean, I think they're being completely misrepresented. Like you guys were saying, what it sounded like from yesterday's cast or whatever that was, that it's been incredibly peaceful and against all odds. I mean, I'm sure any sort of false flag attack or violence that could be perpetuated would be completely, exploited by the mainstream media if that were to happen.
Sure.
And there's been nothing. They have been, cleaning up all their own trash. They've been feeding not just the truckers, but anyone who's at the protest. They're shoveling all the sidewalks. They're keeping one lane of traffic open throughout the entire city so that people, like emergency vehicles and such can get in and out if there's a fire or something. It's been very well orchestrated for a grassroots movement. And I'm just overly impressed and proud to be a truck driver with how they've done this, because they could have gone all BLM and, started burning buildings and rioting, and they didn't. They've been very peaceful.
It's been very impressive. I don't know if you've seen this video going around with Trudeau speaking about how horrible this thing is, and over his speaking, you have the actual footage of what's really going on. Like they're taking away the food from the homeless, and it's like this giant thing of free food. Just one thing after another.
There's like bouncy houses, dance parties. I mean, speeches.
Typical terrorist stuff, But I mean, the only ones who are acting in any horrible way are the cops,
Of course. And they have now been targeting the Ambassador Bridge, which is like the #1 bridge as far as moving product across from the U.S. to Canada. That's been clogged up, and the cops swooped in today in large numbers. Definitely want to get an update on that. Reed, you're going to be with us here for most of the hour. Stand by. We're going to come back more with Reed Coverdale, the host of Naturalist Capitalist podcast. It's Free Talk Live. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it.
Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
My name is Angel Rach. I'm a mother of 2 teenage children, and I fought all the way to the Supreme Court for the right to use the medicine that saved my life. I've been permanently disabled for 10 years, with an inoperable brain tumor, wasting syndrome, and several other serious conditions. For 4 years, I was in a wheelchair, in so much pain, I couldn't even hug my kids. The hardest part was looking in their eyes and seeing how much they were suffering because of my medical condition. The medicine that gave me my life back and gave my kids their mom back was cannabis, also known as medical marijuana. With medical marijuana, I can walk, maintain my weight, and I can be a mom. Without it, my doctors believe that I would die. To learn more about medical marijuana, contact Marijuana Policy Project at 1-877-JOIN-MPP or on the web at mpp.org.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk live Saturday show. Phone's open here. If you got a question for Reed Coverdale, he's with us. He is a professional driver in the United States. And I do want to find out what, if any, plan is afoot to do a freedom convoy here. There's been some buzz about that on social media, but is it real or is it just something that people are saying?
Is it live or is it Memorex?
We'll find that out coming up here. The number is 603-283-6160. It's Ian here tonight.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And Captain Kickass is also here.
You can join us online over at freetalklive.com. We've got a social media platform that we run. It's not some sort of big media, big tech thing where you can easily be banned. You can pretty much be free to say whatever you want over at social.freetalklive.com. So check that out when you get a chance. It's social.freetalklive.com. Reed Coverdale is with us. He's the host of Naturalist Capitalist.
I do have a question for Reed Coverdale.
Yeah, well, good. He's here.
Hey, Reed, this is unrelated to anything we've talked about, but I got to know, are you related to the guy from, was it Whitesnake, David Coverdale?
I'm not. I am related to Miles Coverdale, who was one of the first, I think he might have been the first guy to translate the Bible into English, but not to David Coverdale.
Okay, all right.
Okay, I'm curious, before we get back into the protests, the Freedom Convoy, tell me about Naturalist Capitalist. What does it mean?
Oh, boy. So I basically think that, so it's not to be confused with naturist capitalist.
We were wondering about that.
Kennedy, when I was on the show last week, she did confuse it there. But I basically think all of our problems are because we have, artificially elevated people to positions they don't belong in, and not just in our government, but also in our society. We have pseudo intellectuals who basically run our lives now. And specifically in the workplace, we have created a system that, with what should be the lowest common denominator, has now become the status quo. So we need these really dumb regulations that would protect the most unwitting idiot ever. We need to apply those to everybody so that no mistakes can happen. And this is also the same approach that's happened with COVID. If we can save one life, we're just going to create this stupid this stupid regime that basically tries to protect everyone from germs and make sure no one gets sick. It seems to be the problem pretty much across the board. So I'm a bit Darwinian, actually. I think we need to bring back a little bit of natural selection, definitely to our government, but also to our society. Like, people who don't have anything interesting to say, we shouldn't be putting them on pedestals and acting as if they're some great philosopher. We need to get back to a point where, the hierarchy of good ideas is the way that we actually, go through discourse and figure out the best way to go forward, instead of handing out participation trophies to everybody and acting like everyone is, equally good at what they do. And it's just not true. So capitalism, in my mind, is one of the most obvious examples of forces of nature working in society. Real capitalism, where we let big businesses fail, where we let, products that are not as good as others go the way of the dodo bird, and we just let the best idea, the best product, the best people win out. And that doesn't mean that, we leave people in the dust and don't take care of them. But this idea that trying to make everybody the same is going to be the best, instead of letting the good people really flourish and show us the direction we should be going in the future, that will help everybody. Elevating the individual and trying to just naturally find the best solutions in life is just going to give us a better society than trying to make everybody this boring medium, which is
like
what
this
we've done.
guy.
Yeah, it's really eloquent response.
So I've had to practice it. I've had to answer that question a few
lot.
times,
Yeah.
so.
I have a quick question for you. How many days since you last got deplatformed?
Ooh.
It's been a while.
Congratulations.
Which is incredible. But I think it was like October or November.
They knocked you off of Twitter at one point, not too long ago, right? Couple months.
They kicked me off of Twitter permanently, and I somehow have evaded that ban, just being one character different. And I had almost 20,000 followers, and I've got 11 and a half now, and it's just Reed_Coverdale instead of Reed Coverdale. So I'm not really sure how I've managed that for as long as I have.
Your show
but they also removed one of my videos, and it was like 2 days after they kicked me off Twitter. So I thought I was done. I thought, oh, here it goes. They're just going to crunch me on everything. But
when you say they removed one of your videos, you mean YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was going to be my next question, was whether you had trouble with them.
You backing up on library/Odyssey?
He's on Odyssey.
I am. Yep.
At Naturalist Capitalist.
Yeah, I've kind of diversified all over the place. I'm on Float, Gab, Getter for some reason, even though that's a joke. But I've just gone everywhere just in case they remove me from somewhere, because the first time I got banned, I realized, oh wow, I put all my eggs in one basket, or two baskets, Twitter and YouTube. And I was like, wow, my Twitter's gone. If they take my YouTube, I'll be over. erased. So I've been really trying to push myself all over the place.
Good move. We'll send out a link to your Odyssey channel as well, to our various different social media, so folks can follow you over there. Of course, we're on Odyssey. We're streaming there, and we do the same thing. We're on like 8 different streaming platforms, and we really don't care what happens to any of them, but we expect we're going to continue on Odyssey because that's actually run by freedom-loving people. And, of course, it's backed by the library protocol, which is completely uncensorable, so there is that, too. But let's get back to the protests, the Freedom Convoy. We've covered the Canadian situation in detail over the last 2 weeks. I don't want to rehash all the things we've talked about. I do want to find out, you told me that you were going to check into the USA Freedom Convoy, the potential for this. There have been some images, there have been some maps that have been thrown up on social media saying it's going to start on the 12th, which is today as we're doing this show. It's going to start in California. It might be around the Super Bowl or something like that. And then they're going to go 6 days across the country to end in either D.C. or New York City, and I'm not sure which. Right. There's a bunch of different reports. Obviously, you've got your ear to the ground. You're in the business. You probably hang out in trucker forums and chat rooms and things like that. So what are you hearing about a U.S. Freedom Convoy?
So I hate to tell you this, but absolutely nothing aside from social media. So the idea that everyone's chattering about this on the CB or all the truck stops are full of nothing but, people wondering about what's going to happen and talking about it. Hate to break it to you guys, but that's not true. And my boss who runs the company, he hasn't even really heard anything. So I did finally join a Telegram group that's kind of state by state. And from what I see there, it's still very much in the planning stage. It's like, what are we going to do? How is this going to be executed? So I'm just trying to give my advice as to how it should be done here, because I think it should be done differently than it's being done in Canada, just because things are different down here. So
what would you advise?
Well, I know this might catch some flack, but I actually don't think blockading is good. Like, I fully support what's going on in Ottawa.
And by that, do you mean they should continue rolling? Because like you said, in Ottawa, they do have at least one lane open, so emergency vehicles or whoever can get through. So it's not a total blockade. But are you saying that they shouldn't even be stopped?
No. Like, what's going on in Ottawa, I think, is 100% fine.
Okay.
I think, like when Black Lives Matter was blocking roads, I don't know. Like,
that's bad.
I didn't agree with it, and so I can't just agree with this because I agree with the message behind what they're saying. But the United States is also very different. We have 48 different states down here that are all reacting to COVID very differently, where, like I said earlier, Canada has had this uniform approach. So I
Reed,
think
hold that thought. We're going to continue more with Reed Coverdale, host of Naturalist Capitalist, and your thoughts are welcome as well here on Free Talk Live.
And now, time for something totally different. Intercoin is a project that's working to make crypto mainstream. We use the power of smart contracts to help any community in the world launch their own cryptocurrency. Ever wanted to release your own coin or build your own app to grow your business? Intercoin's team builds apps that have reached 9 million people around the world. And now it's time to help make a real social impact in your local community. Go to intercoin.org and join the movement. That's intercoin.org.
When we first started Intercoin about 3 years ago, we had a big vision to help every community in the world have access to the same tools that large states and federations do, to hold local elections on the blockchain, to have their own local currency, shop local, hire local, and help fight the forces of globalization that have decimated some of these communities.
Go to intercoin.org and join the movement.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the week ended with the US sounding the alarm over Russia's intentions towards Ukraine. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said there is gathering intelligence to suggest an invasion could be close, telling American citizens to leave Ukraine by the end of this weekend and ruling out any prospect of a US military evacuation for any Americans left behind.
There is a very distinct possibility that Russia will choose to act militarily. and there is reason to believe that that could happen on a reasonably swift time frame.
President Biden, in an interview with NBC, underscored that he will not mount another Afghan-style rescue mission for Americans or other Westerners who get caught behind Russian lines.
What scenarios would you put American troops to rescue and get Americans out?
There's not. That's a world war. When Americans and Russians start shooting at one another, we're in a very different world than we've ever been in.
The Russians spent all week insisting they have no plans to invade Ukraine, do not seek to overthrow the government in Kyiv, and are open to ongoing diplomacy. Britain's Defence Secretary Ben Wallace was one of a host of European officials who trekked to Moscow for meetings with top Kremlin officials.
When they say to me they are not going to invade Ukraine, we will take that seriously. But as I've also said, we will look at the actions that accompany it.
But the US ended the week announcing it's sending 3,000 more troops to Poland. President Biden is at Camp David this weekend monitoring events, and open, White House officials say, to a phone conversation with Vladimir Putin. In other news of the week, Canada's Freedom Convoy of protesting truckers spread to the United States. That's the sound of a highway in Alaska being blockaded. The Premier of Ontario declared a state of emergency as thousands of truckers demanding an end to vaccine mandates and the resignation of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continued to besiege Ottawa and blocked bridges and land crossings between Canada and the US. The protests are securing funding and political support from the far right in America. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas spoke on Fox News.
The Canadian truckers are heroes. They are patriots, and they are marching for your freedom and for my freedom. Those truck drivers, that God bless them, they're defending Canada, but they're defending America as well.
Cressida Dick, the head of the Metropolitan Police, announced her resignation. She's been beset with difficulties for months and made the decision after the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, pulled the rug out from under her.
He has left me no choice but to step aside. I say this with deep sadness and regret.
And the US delayed plans to roll out COVID-19 vaccines for the under fives. The Food and Drug Administration says the decision requires more study. From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. Phones open here. If you want to join us, you can. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by Bitcoin.com. If you are new to cryptocurrency and you want to learn the basics, you can just click Get Started right there at the top of the page over at Bitcoin.com. And they make it super easy for you to do that. Once again, that's Bitcoin.com. So you can, of course, bring up anything you want. That's going to be happening in just a moment. But first, we do have Reed Coverdale with us here. He's the host of Naturalist Capitalist. That is available on Odyssey. It's on YouTube, but who really wants to watch anything over on YouTube? So definitely follow him on Odyssey. I just sent out the link to that on our various social media in case you don't have it handy. Reed, thanks for joining us here for an extended interview tonight. I know you've got to go pretty soon to get on your show, which you're going to do your 200th episode tonight. So once again, kudos to you for hitting that mile marker.
Indeed.
I think we're at like 6,000 something, but I stopped counting a long time ago. But good to have you here. You've been telling us about the Freedom Convoy, kind of from your perspective as a professional driver here in the United States and as a liberty-minded guy. And you were, looking into whether or not this was going to happen in the U.S. There's been some buzz on social media, but you just told us you haven't heard much of anything actually directly from other drivers about this happening here.
Yeah, literally nothing. I would not know it was going to happen unless I had social media. So, and like I said, my boss doesn't either, and he's, got to be very involved in all this stuff. So, I don't know. I have a feeling something will happen, but I don't really know how Canada's took off either. I talked to a couple different people who were up there, and they said it was very grassroots, and it just sort of spontaneously happened. So I really have no idea what to expect.
Maybe that'll happen here. I mean, the talk has been that it may start as soon as this weekend around the Super Bowl and then head east to D.C. And now you were just giving us some recommendations that if it were to happen, or when it does happen here in the U.S., what they should do or how they should do it differently. And you were kind of going off on that, running us down on that. Do you want to keep that going?
Sure. So the United States has been very different in its approach than Canada has. Canada was pretty unilateral and, across the board. It was like living in Manhattan here, but across all of Canada. You can't do anything if you're not vaccinated. I have not gotten a single vaccine. I haven't worn a mask in over a year unless I'm on an airplane, and I've been completely fine. I've only been asked to leave one store that entire time. So it's just a different deal down here. And when it comes to protesting, I care about results, not justification. Like I'm
with you. Yeah.
January 6th, I don't think there was anything unjustified about that. But what was the result of it? You just got a big push for more surveillance and more demonization of gun owners and right wingers. So I think that was a flop. So I just want whatever this ends up being, I want it to be successful. And we don't have the same mandates here that they do in Canada. I mean, you don't need to be vaccinated to have a job. The Supreme Court threw that recent decision out. Unless you're a health worker. Yeah, true. If you are a healthcare worker, it is different. So there is that. But we need to be very specific with what our goals are here. So if you live in Idaho or Florida or New Hampshire or, Texas or Indiana, I mean, all sorts of different states, if you're not in one of these horrible liberal cities, COVID has pretty much passed. Like, it's pretty much over unless you're a healthcare worker. So we need to be very targeted with how we do the protest here. So I think, doing a convoy to Washington, D.C. and hanging out in the Capitol and just being annoying, blowing horns peacefully like they are in Ottawa, I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that's fine. What I just don't want to see is massive blockades of interstates, destroying the supply line more than it already has been here, because, I don't think just making people suffer is going to accomplish anything. The Black Lives Matter protesters, when they went after the police station in Minneapolis, I was kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, you kind of got what you had coming. When they went into restaurants and started screaming at white people that they weren't anti-racist enough, it was like, what are you doing? Like, this isn't going to accomplish anything. You're just going to make people hate you. So I just want to see a very targeted, intelligent approach that'll actually get us results. And I think we might even have to have slightly different goals than what Canada does. Because like I said, we have fewer restrictions here that are federally mandated. So maybe we should be also pushing for something else. If we're actually going to go to the Capitol and make a stink, like maybe, hey, get rid of these ELDs, that's electronic log devices, that they've had us under for a while now. Or, maybe we need to change the clearinghouse drug testing regulations that have taken tens of thousands of truckers off the road. Maybe we just
you're touching on it here, but there's so many different ways the government has screwed professional drivers in the United States, and you guys don't really have a platform to talk. You guys are working all the time, so I mean, you're just touching on these things. The electronic logs. I've known that you guys have had to do logs. What's the difference between the old system and this new electronic one?
It takes the human element out of it. So the laws actually haven't changed since like the 60s, I think, as far as hours of service go. But when you have a paper log, if you're just going to be 15 minutes late, that's fine. Like, you just kind of fudge it and get it as close as you can. Now it's electronic. So if you're 1 second over, if you get pulled over and they see that on your log, they can write you a citation.
Oh my God.
So now you're micromanaged, right?
Yeah, exactly. So say there's 2 truck stops that you're coming up on. One is about 10 miles away and the other one's like 70 miles away. And you have 55 minutes left on your clock for driving. What do you have to do? You either have to speed and like really recklessly try to get to that next truck stop before your clock runs out, or you have to be like, well, you know what? I'm just going to have to waste 45 minutes of driving that I'm not going to be able to use. And
sitting at the truck stop.
So, I mean, back in the day, you could just go to the second one. And if you're 10 minutes late, who cares? Because you're on paper logs.
And this is a federal mandate, this thing?
Yeah, so the way it works is, I think it's if you have a post 2009 truck. So I forget what year it is, some year when they have engines put in, you have to have an ELD hookup. And if you have a truck that's older than that, you still don't need it. You can use paper logs. But like in California, they're trying to outlaw those trucks. Like you already need a special permit to drive one of those trucks into California.
Heard that.
So, you know,
that may be a reason why the California cannot load enough cargo onto drivers. There's just not enough truckers to pick up these cargo containers.
So
yeah, I mean, you got that, and then there's also the owner-operator law that they're trying to pass in California, which so I can still go into California because I'm just an employee of a company. I'm just a company driver. And then if you're an independent operator, which means you own your truck and your business, you can also go in. But if you're one of the in-between guys, which is most independent people, they're owner-operators, so they own their truck, but they work for another business. They just haul trailers for Prime or Schneider or whatever. They're trying to make it so you can't go into California anymore.
It's crazy.
So, and then on top of that, all the diesel regulations they're going after and everything, it's insane with all the supply chain issues we're already having that they're trying to crack down on that.
So I wanted to ask you about this potential American convoy thing. So I mean, it seems to me that the American government, if there is an occupation of DC, that they will be a lot more violent in their response to it. I mean, is that something that concerns you? I mean, especially if we don't get sufficient numbers for safety for that.
Yeah, I mean, I have second thoughts about doing this thing at all. To be honest, I'm not sure it's 100% necessary. I feel like the United States and actually everywhere, I think all this stuff is going to be rolled back this year because I think it's kind of run its useful course. They used it to get as far as they could with contact tracing and medical history and like everything they could to track everything about us. But they're realizing that people are getting sick of it. So I actually think they're kind of done with this strategy.
Yeah, even a lot of people on the left are sick of it. There's been some like Bill Maher clips where he's been talking with some lefties, and they're tired of this. Reed, thanks for coming on tonight. I would love to have continued to talk to you about your move back to New Hampshire, but you're going to be coming back here, so we'll probably talk to you again at some point. Appreciate you being on, and again, that's Reed Coverdale, the host of Naturalist Capitalist, and thanks, dude.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yep, and enjoy the ride out there. We'll continue here with In Moments. This is Free Talk Live. Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com.
Is oral health important to you? If you don't like your own teeth, fresh breath, or kissing people, then by all means, stop listening. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I became passionate about the product that she created and never want to live without it. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, but I find it does much more. They want you to love My Magic Mud as much as I do, so they're giving you a money-back guarantee plus 20% off. Go to MyMagicMud.com and use coupon code FTL20 at checkout. MyMagicMud.com, FTL20.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people like passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project early movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. Phones open here. Live Saturday show. Number for you, 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. We will take your calls about whatever's on your mind, and there's still some trucker, convoy stuff, Freedom Convoy news that I do want to discuss, like what's happened with the Ambassador Bridge situation, where that had been blockaded for, I think, 5 days. The police came in.
I want to just disagree with the last statement the caller made.
You mean our guest, Reed Coverdale?
Yeah.
What was the statement?
Guest. Well, he said that he thinks it's all going to roll back now, and that it's basically over, and that kind of thing, as far as like the
there is some evidence that
stuff.
even in some surprising places like New York, they are rolling some stuff back.
Sure, and this is historically what governments do. They you give an inch, they take a mile, and then they roll it back to only the half-mile marker.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I agree with him in a sense. Like, I think that they're pulling back on this, but I think they're going to switch to some other tactic, probably environmentalism, but possibly something else.
I saw something cross my feed. I didn't get into it, where they're somehow thinking about, instead of a COVID vaccine, making some sort of broadband vaccine that everybody's going to have to take.
A broadband vaccine?
Yeah, like just, a general vaccine that everybody has to take.
It'll make you healthier.
Yeah.
That kind of thing?
Yeah.
That sounds scary.
Snake oil.
Let's go to your phone calls, though. We got Renee. She's calling us listening in Michigan to WCHT in Gladstone. Go ahead, Renee.
Hi, I'm calling because I was just on my way home and I heard the woman call that was claiming that she couldn't work because she was bipolar, and I found it very annoying because I was exposed and lived with a bipolar person for a long time. They can be very intelligent.
Just for our listeners who are confused, I'm sorry to interrupt. You're referring to something that actually happened. I think it was last night, but you're probably hearing like an hour of last night's show. It's no big deal. I just wanted to let our listeners know, like, who's she talking about? She's talking about Sarah, who is she's a regular caller. I'm sure we'll be hearing from her later tonight.
That.
But go ahead with what you were going to say about it.
Yeah, no, it just made me very unhappy because you can't use the whole bipolar thing to say I can't work. There's bipolar 1, 2, and then NS non-specific. And if you're on the right medication, bipolarism is, they can be very intelligent, very high intellectual capacity, and you can work if you want to.
Sure.
That for an excuse not to go to work.
Sarah's lazy and she doesn't want to work. She's a communist.
Excuse. And it's also real easy for some people if they have the right paperwork from either their doctors or the government or
Yes.
both that says, "Oh,
Yep.
you suffer from this disorder, and we
Right.
don't recommend full-time employment."
She's
Oh, well, I
getting
can't
paid.
work.
She's getting paid to not work. She's on.
That
you know,
doesn't make it okay.
no, it doesn't.
Agreed.
Yeah.
I'm
Agreed.
totally with you, Renee.
Very
And-
lame.
yeah, I'm with you. Thanks
Yeah,
for the call tonight. I do
my
appreciate
thought
here.
is-
I do
like-
appreciate it. Thank you.
Everyone's bipolar. Some of us learn how to manage our emotions.
There you go. Let's go to Dennis. He's calling us from New Hampshire. This happens to be the Dennis who is the organizer of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which is coming up in the summertime. It'll be like
Good, I
basically
have a question for him.
the first week of the summer, technically, if you go in late in June. Dennis, welcome to Free Talk Live.
Hello, Ian. Hello, Free Talk Live.
Hey, what's up?
Hey, Dennis.
Welcome. I know you called for a reason, but the captain says he's already got a question for you. So do you mind fielding his question right out the gate?
Well, all right. Well, that's exciting. Hello, Captain.
Hey, so I was looking for some folks, some friends of mine who are trying to attend the festival. If you go to the campground, of course, everything shows is sold out. So if somebody wants to go, they've never been, and they want to stay at the campground or get a hotel room, they have to go to what websites and get a ticket, and then how do they get their lodging?
Right. Well, you go to porkfest.com, get your ticket. The last of the campsites are gone.
Whoa.
This is actually the reason I talked to Ian a few weeks ago. I said, look, I got to tell the folks that this is moving a lot faster than it's ever moved before. Last year was our first time ever sold out, which really blew us away.
Yeah, that's huge.
And this year, I mean, we're accelerated, probably 3 months ahead.
Damn.
Nice.
So, I was saying, I mean, we really want out-of-staters. That's whom we want. We want out-of-staters who are thinking about moving here. And, the more we can get you guys out here and meet us in person and talk to us and find out what it is that we're doing and how we're creating all this cool stuff, the better it's going to be, because we're going to get more of you guys moving here, and we're going to get a better free state, and then that will just increase the amount of people who keep moving here. So that's what we really want. The Porcupine Freedom Festival is a fantastic festival. It's an immersion into freedom, as though we were actually living in freedom. It's a great week of experience, and it's not just a party. It's really kind of this thing of, this is what we're trying to create. Please come here to New Hampshire and help us create it. I mean, I'm so glad that Reed is moving here. He moved away, but we call those removers when they come back.
By the way, you're just to let our listeners know, maybe we got people tuning in for the first time tonight. We're inviting liberty-minded people that are voluntarists, people that are liberty-loving anarchists, people that are libertarians. Those are the people who belong at this event. This isn't just, hey, anybody come on in. No, we want freedom activists. We want liberty activists to migrate here. That's what the Free State Project is all about. The Free State Project is the organization that puts on the Porcupine Freedom Festival. So I just want to kind of set the table here, the stage for what we're discussing.
More importantly, to me anyway, the people that I want moving are the people who are willing, right? There's a whole bunch of people that claim to be of a liberty mind. They're well, when New Hampshire secedes, then I'll move. I don't. Those are the people I don't want. Yeah. I want people who are like, no, I want to move there and help this thing, help them secede, and help them become a part of history. Those are the people that I want.
We need the doers.
That's right, and that was actually the big difference. I mean, last year when I took over PorcFest, I really redesigned it, and it's got a lot of differences from past PorcFest, and but the thing I think that really made us so successful last year, that just made this thing blow up, is I did segmentation, and I really targeted the high-need liberty people. And, that really snowballed. And that snowballed, I started that snowball in January, and by March, April, we had, those people were bringing in their friends and their friends and their friends. Yep. So we targeted, people who were serious about secession. We targeted anarcho-capitalists. We targeted, Mises Caucus. We targeted, freedom cell people. So what we were looking for were the most rabid freedom lovers. The people we didn't target, and this is actually was a difference. We didn't target, and I've had a subscription since 1982, so I don't want to say anything bad here. But the reason Cato, DC Beltway kind of libertarian,
good call,
who says, this is great stuff, and really, we need to bring the tax rates down to 26% because, that argument of 26 versus 28 versus 35, those people aren't going to move.
Yeah,
those people are
our
not
argument
the
needs to be
people
should it
who
be
are
zero
so,
or negative.
Yeah, I don't want to be 26% a slave. Thanks.
Right. Well, and plus it's so much more a slave, right? With all the regulation and the inflation, but we want the people who say that is absolutely outrageous that they would even think about doing that to us. And I want to create a society in which the humans treat one another with such high regard that they would never, ever, ever even think about doing that. That's what we're trying to create here in the Free State. Those are the people we want. And so last year, it was we had so many out-of-staters, and we had the
Can you hold on before you go on?
who were-
Can you get a feeling as the organizer for what percentage of the event last year, which as you said was a sellout for the very first time ever in 18, 19 years? Can you get a feel for what percentage of the group that was there was out-of-staters versus people who had already made the move and live here now?
Yeah, it was over 45%.
Okay, that's pretty good.
And I would actually like it to be even higher this year. I mean, what I did this year was I didn't even advertise inside of the Free State that much. I mean, of course, everybody in the Free State knows about the Pork Fest. They talk about the Pork Fest.
Yeah.
A lot of the people last year bought the tickets almost immediately, at the end of Pork Fest for the next Pork Fest. So, we started off really well. We hit we were at the second highest attendance ever in our 19 years. Before Christmas.
Wow. And usually ticket sales don't get rolling until heavily until after Liberty Forum, right?
That's right. Liberty Forum's usually the kind of the kick-off for ticket sales.
Dennis, can you hang on? We'll talk further about what's going on with Pork Fest here in a few moments. All right, more with Dennis Pratt. He is the organizer, one of them. There's always a big team involved in this, in the Porcupine Freedom Festival. We'll talk about it coming up. It's Free Talk Live. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the week ended with the US sounding the alarm over Russia's intentions towards Ukraine. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said there is gathering intelligence to suggest an invasion could be close, telling American citizens to leave Ukraine by the end of this weekend and ruling out any prospect of a US military evacuation for any Americans left behind.
There is a very distinct possibility that Russia will choose to act militarily, and there is reason to believe that that could happen on a reasonably swift time frame.
President Biden, in an interview with NBC, underscored that he will not mount another Afghan-style rescue mission for Americans or other Westerners who get caught behind Russian lines.
What scenarios would you put American troops to rescue and get Americans out?
There's not. That's a world war. When Americans and Russians start shooting at one another, we're in a very different world than we've ever been in.
The Russians spent all week insisting they have no plans to invade Ukraine, do not seek to overthrow the government in Kyiv, and are open to ongoing diplomacy. Britain's Defence Secretary Ben Wallace was one of a host of European officials who trekked to Moscow for meetings with top Kremlin officials.
When they say to me they are not going to invade Ukraine, we will take that seriously. But as I've also said, we will look at the actions that accompany it.
But the US ended the week announcing it's sending 3,000 more troops to Poland. President Biden is at Camp David this weekend monitoring events, and open, White House officials say, to a phone conversation with Vladimir Putin. In other news of the week, Canada's Freedom Convoy of protesting truckers spread to the United States. That's the sound of a highway in Alaska being blockaded. The Premier of Ontario declared a state of emergency as thousands of truckers demanding an end to vaccine mandates and the resignation of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continued to besiege Ottawa and blocked bridges and land crossings between Canada and the US. The protests are securing funding and political support from the far right in America. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas spoke on Fox News.
The Canadian truckers are heroes. They are patriots, and they are marching for your freedom and for my freedom. Those truck drivers, that God bless them, they're defending Canada, but they're defending America as well.
Cressida Dick, the head of the Metropolitan Police, announced her resignation. She's been beset with difficulties for months and made the decision after the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, pulled the rug out from under her.
He has left me no choice but to step aside. I say this with deep sadness and regret.
And the US delayed plans to roll out COVID-19 vaccines for the under 5s. The Food and Drug Administration says the decision requires more study. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. The focus on Wall Street this week will remain locked on the Federal Reserve and its plans to curb rising inflation. Last week's consumer price index ticked up to a 40-year high, and the Fed has vowed to address price pressures. From FSN's business desk in New York, Will Denzelo with the preview.
Wednesday sees the release of minutes from the last Federal Reserve meeting. Investors are expecting the central bank to start raising interest rates soon, but these minutes could give further clues as to just how aggressively it plans to act. Many traders expect the Fed to take strong action in the wake of last week's consumer price index data. January's retail sales data is also due out Wednesday, and Wall Street analysts will be eager to see how the COVID-19 Omicron variant impacted US consumers. And earnings season rattles on, with the likes of Walmart, Alibaba and Airbnb all slated to release quarterly figures throughout the trading week. William Denslow, New York.
India's most populous state, Uttar Pradesh, has started holding elections. It's one of 5 states going to the polls in the next month. The elections will serve as a referendum on the popularity of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. From FSN's bureau in Delhi, Ishan Garg is covering that story.
With a population that rivals countries such as Brazil, Uttar Pradesh is key to winning national elections in 2024. Allegations of COVID-19 pandemic mismanagement are haunting the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. Voters are also concerned about rising inflation and unemployment in the state. But analysts say identity politics may play a crucial role here.
There's only one big story we'll be watching in the coming week, and that, of course, is Ukraine and the US government's prediction on Friday that a Russian invasion may soon occur. FSN is on the ground in Ukraine, Moscow, Washington, Brussels and London, with full coverage here and on broadcast networks around the world. And that is the Week in Review from Feature Story News. Simon Marks reporting.
According to a new report released this week by the Pew Research Center, a rising number of weak, emasculated men are working as stay-at-home dads, with a steadily increasing number of feeble, pathetic fayboys choosing to spend their days cooking, cleaning, and performing other submissive duties.
Well, our findings indicate that more and more pussified half-men are not going to work, and instead are embarrassing themselves by purchasing groceries, packing children's lunches, and denying all aspects of their masculinity on a daily basis.
The Onion spoke to one of these effete, pathetic excuses for men to get his response on the new report.
I love being able to stay home with Angela. I mean, it's a lot of work, but I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
What a f***ing pussy. For more on this story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live Saturday show. The phones are open here if you want to join us. The number 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. Joining you in the studio, it's Ian.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And the revolution is only one hug away. It's the captain.
We're going to continue, of course, with your calls and thoughts. If we get the chance, I want to dig in a little deeper into what's going on with the Freedom Convoy up in Canada. Not just in the city of Ottawa, but also on the bridge, the main bridge between Canada and the United States, the Windsor Bridge, the Ambassador Bridge, I guess is what it's called, but it's between Windsor and Detroit.
One of our callers had mentioned Whitmer, Gretchen Whitmer, the tyrant of Michigan, and the difference between her reaction to the truckers' convoy for freedom or for anti-mandates versus the BLM movement, where she strutted around with some BLM folks and welcome them to the city, etc., and so on, right? And she's completely opposed to any of this trucker business.
Support the workers, unless they're the people who actually keep the country together.
Right, are working.
So PorcFest.com is the Porcupine Freedom Festival's website, and that is where you can go to learn more and get tickets for the upcoming Porcupine Freedom Festival. This will be the 19th, apparently, annual PorcFest. And last year, we got Dennis Pratt with us on. He's on the air with us right now. He's one of the organizers of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and he started doing the main organizing tasks last year, brought some interesting changes to the forefront, and as a result, perhaps, it became, or maybe it was also a confluence of the fact that COVID was really setting people off and making people want to actually change their lives.
Sometimes the right coach finds the right team. You know?
Everything kind of came together, I think, Dennis. And anyway, you're back on again for this year, and you're saying this event is nearing a sellout. How close? I've heard rumors it's 3/4 sold out at this point. How close are we?
Yeah, it used to be 3/4. We're around 82%. We just increased the prices because we really don't want to sell out almost immediately. The people who've been to PorcFest, they know how good it is, especially the people who went last year. They go, oh my God, with this total decentralization, the hub strategy, and having hubs all throughout the campground. I know, Ian, you couldn't make it out there, but that's basically what we did. We've turned it into this campground-wide festival where we have lounges and we have venues scattered throughout the entire campsite. And so just as an example, in 2019, we had 100 events through the week, which is a good number and a lot of fun and all that type of stuff. Last year we had 700.
Wow! So there's a whole lot more choice.
That's a big jump. It was 7 times the number of events, all because we decentralized. Nice. And we, there was of course the Christian Hub and of course Free Talk Live, but there was also the Women's Hub, and there was Well, I won't even go into some of the hubs, but it was
we are on broadcast
a wide
radio.
range of interest, and you know, and because we were so open to this decentralization and the hub emergence from bottom up. What I found was there would be these hubs that would crop up that would surprise the heck out of me. You know, the one I'd like to point out almost all the time is there was a knitting hub. Now, I would never, ever, ever have thought of a knitting.
Right. Right, and that's a great point, because you as the organizer of this, you know, in previous years, prior to this decentralized system that, you know, you came up with, the organizers would have to sit around and say, all right, well, what should we talk about on Thursday? What should we, you know, who should we invite on Friday? And like you said, you would have not thought, okay, well, let's have a session for the knitters. But yet, you know, from the bottom up, these people, there were enough of them, and they said, hey, we need to get together. We can knit together and talk or do whatever it is that they were doing.
I'm a big fan of quality crocheted goods, so, you know.
And then, of course, there's, the crypto people, and they had their own thing going on. It really sounded like quite an event, and the only reason I wasn't there was because I was under threat of violence if I left my house from the federal government. But hopefully I will be able to attend at least for a day or two this coming year. Maybe more, we'll see. It just depends on whether or not the federal gang will loosen my leash enough to let me out. But we've got a few months before that happens.
You were certainly there in spirit. I mean, the largest venue that we have, I really only schedule 2 venues, and other than that, what I do is I support all these hubs creating their own little spaces and stuff. I give them tools and let them advertise their hubs and let them advertise their events, and so it's all kind of infrastructure, giving the infrastructure in order to allow creativity to emerge. But the largest hub, which we call the Pavilion, was last year called the Crypto 6 Pavilion.
Yeah.
And it was there was a lot of warm feeling and wishing you were there throughout the campground.
Well, thank you. So let's get back to the tickets. You said maybe 20% left. You're over 80% sold out at this point. This thing's going to sell out probably like within the next month or so, it seems like. So folks want to go to porcfest.com. It's porcfest.com. It's $95 for the general admission ticket. That gets you the entire week of June 20th through the 26th. What else can you mention about these tickets?
Well, I think Kevin actually was mentioning, where do you stay? So
Great
today,
question.
I think it was today or yesterday, the last of the campgrounds were sold out.
Hold on, let me just follow. Let me clarify what you mean by that. Does that mean that the RV sites and the campsites are sold out? Because at Rogers, there's a whole bunch of RV sites, and then there's a whole separate area of quote unquote campsites.
Yeah.
Is all of it sold out?
All sold out, my friend.
Wow.
All sold out.
What about the 2 hotels on site?
Almost certainly
those
sold
were
out.
gone. Those were gone early.
Yeah,
those were gone early. And Cabot is sold out, and so
that's the hotel down the road.
There's a couple of choices, right? You can move out, a few miles to some of the hotels in the surrounding area.
Mm-hmm.
And last year we actually had people who were as far away as kind of a lodge or a hotel, or some people gathered together and did an Airbnb. But there are people who are as far away as a half hour to drive in and out. But the other thing that we're doing is we have kind of this aftermarket going. So we have, people trading spaces and sharing spaces, and someone will get a hotel room, but they have an extra bed, so they get a roommate, or they have a campsite and they're only putting up a small tent, so they're going to bring in some other people, or they have an RV,
like a secondary market for tickets, sort of. I got you.
Yeah. So I actually was building that just the other day. We have a way that you can kind of say, this is what I have. And kind of who I'm looking for, or this is what I'm looking for, and so it's just kind of a board that people can kind of put up their desires.
Where does one go to find this? Is this on a specific site, or is it the PorcFest website? Or where does this?
Yeah,
appear?
Well, I highly recommend. I mean, PorcFest is such a great experience when you're there, but a lot of the fun of PorcFest is actually talking and meeting with people who are in your affinity groups. Who are already excited about what it is that you're excited about, and then you can talk to them and discuss. And then when you get to PorcFest, you already know these people, right? And you go and you maybe have a hub around your affinity group. So we have a group on Telegram and we have a group on Facebook. And that's really what I recommend people do. On Facebook, it's called PorkFest Plans. And if you go there, you can say, hey, I'm looking for this, and people will direct you and take you by the hand and share with you. And on Telegram, it's called, I think it's PF for PorkFest, attendee chat. Both of those places are just great places to meet other attendees and then find the different affinity groups. On Telegram, I think we had last year something like 40 or 50 virtual affinity groups where people got together beforehand to talk about what they were going to do and create at PorkFest. And they all made fast friends, and then they were at PorkFest. They enjoyed that, and then afterwards they continued that connection.
Yep, and a bunch of people made the move to New Hampshire as well. By the way, record numbers. The Free State Project hit, I think it was over 1,000 movers in the year 2021. So pretty impressive.
That's awesome.
I expect.
And and that is PorkFest with a C, not with a K.
Correct. PorcFest.
Porcupine stands for porcupine.
Dennis, thanks for joining us here. Definitely appreciate it. And hopefully you'll call us with some updates as things get closer. There's more coming up here. It's Free Talk Live. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired of governments around the world killing innocent people? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin is money that cannot be inflated or controlled by any state. By continuing to use their money, you're perpetuating the killing. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available to you now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. It's Bitcoin.com.
Are you making sense to the boomer mindset? I'm Holland Cook from survivalspeech.com. 80 million baby boomers comprise 25% of the population and control most of the USA's wealth. As aging parents pass on, they'll control more. Boomers are 46 to 65 years old and regard themselves as midlife. They identify as neither young nor old. They're post-minivan and pre-retirement, and they don't like being called boomers. They think me. Many of the purchases boomer couples make are individual purposes. They've been experimenters all their lives. If you want their attention, tell stories and keep it simple. If something seems complicated, boomers can dismiss it as, I don't need this. And if you're looking for work, you may be applying to a boomer, so relate accordingly. From survivalspeech.com, I'm Holland Cook.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
How many lawyers does it take to change a light bulb? None. They'd rather keep their clients in the dark. There are too many lawyer jokes to count. However, there are some lawyers with more noble intentions. At the Institute for Justice, we bring the light to our clients. We are a non-profit public interest law firm with clear values and principles. At IJ, we fight for those whose most basic rights are denied by the government. Visit our website today at ij.org.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. The phones are open. You can join us here. The number 603-283-6160. And there are a lot of people that want to talk tonight, so we're going to get to every call that we can. Have plenty of time to do it. We're not even halfway through this episode. The number 603-283-6160. Also, we don't talk about this a lot, but there is an extra way to call in, and that is our SIP line. You can go to sip.freetalklive.com. I've got 6 potential phone lines where people can call in, and one of the 6 is the SIP line. So if the regular phones are busy, the SIP line is almost always open because no one knows how to use it.
In the business, it's known as mental telephony.
Is that what they call SIP?
Well, telephony is the trade name for voice over IP. Mm-hmm. And so instead of mental telepathy, it's mental telephony.
Gotcha. So anyway, SIP is a voice over IP system that allows you to call from basically any internet connection. It's free to use, but it just takes a few minutes to set up. So you got to jump through some hoops to get it set up. But once you get it set up, then you boom, hit a couple buttons, and you're on our phones.
Sounds great, too,
and it
by the
does
way.
sound better than your average phone call. So check it out, sip.freetalklive.com. Also, check out Give Directly. They're the first nonprofit that allows you to give money directly to people who are living in extreme poverty. And we're talking about the kind of poverty where you have to walk for, miles to go get some water that you can drink. That's what we're discussing here. It's families in Bomet and Kilifi counties in Kenya that we're helping out. Give Directly has been doing research, and they've been giving people hundreds of millions of dollars, over $400 million to over 1 million people in the last decade. And they find that it helps people when they can make decisions for themselves with cash. They can get employment, nutrition, health, and education. It really helps them out. And if you think this is a good plan, we want to help you by doubling your money and matching your funds up to $30,000 in total. You can go to give.freetalklive.com to help out. That's give.freetalklive.com. We're going to go back to your calls and thoughts. Andy is on the line. He is en route coming back up to apparently Massachusetts. Andy, welcome back. You're on Free Talk Live. Former co-host, by the way, on Free Talk Live.
What is up, New Hampshire? Ian, Captain Kickass, my man.
What's up, Andy?
Loving your haircut tonight, brother.
Yeah, I styled it just for you, bro.
Peakless Mountaineer is with us as well. Andy, you've got a YouTube channel. It's Go Within to Get Out. That is that many of our listeners may recall that. You hosted our show for a time, like a year. I don't know. Has it been more than a year that you've been gone?
I think so.
I left on December 22nd last year, 2020 technically. I got to Charlotte Christmas Day after my car overheated twice, and then I'm driving back to Massachusetts right now for my grandmother's funeral.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, what on earth could possess you to go back to Massachusetts? And you've got a good reason for it, so okay.
And the only reason I'm driving is because I won't wear the slave muzzle, ritualistic shame muzzle on my face.
Yep.
So my car has 264,000 miles on it. It's like round trip, it's like 1,700 plus miles.
Wow.
And I'm doing that because of the tyranny in this country. So I would love to see you guys. I'm going to be home for at least like 4 or 5 days. I'd love to come up and jump on with you guys if you got a slot open this week.
Yeah, I don't know how the week is looking, but feel free to reach out to me direct after the show, and we'll see, what we got going on. Always good to catch up with you. But what's going on, in down south? I mean, how crazy is the COVID situation in North Carolina? Have things pretty much gone back to normal? What's the latest?
It's not looking good, dude.
Oh boy.
North Carolina's like leading the charge in tyranny, like right up there with the likes of like New York State,
really,
California.
Wow.
They were one of the first places that said 12-year-olds can decide whether or not to take the injection without the knowledge or consent of their parents. That happened last year.
Wow.
Davidson College, right up the road, 30 minutes north of Charlotte, where Stephon Curry played, the dude from the Warriors, they are requiring 5-year-olds to show proof that they got one dose, and 12-year-olds and anyone older than 12 to show proof that they got 2 doses just to see a basketball game.
Damn.
And I actually tried to live stream it 2 weeks ago, and they actually just censored the video and deleted it. I'm trying to figure out how to live stream on Odyssey. I haven't quite figured that out yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not looking great down here in the city. I mean, it's about 1 million people in Charlotte, and there's already been, you can't see a live music show in Charlotte without showing proof of vaccination.
Ugh. Yeah, that even happens to some extent here in New Hampshire, depending on who's putting the concert. Yeah, depending on who's putting on the concert, the concert promotion company or the artist can specify that they will or will not play a show with or without vaccine requirements or mask requirements. And so when they I've tried to go to a few shows here in New Hampshire, and
oh my God.
And one in Boston that I've since bailed on as well, but for all of those reasons, because I can't get into one without showing the papers or wearing the mask.
Yeah, we were talking earlier about the convoy for Canada, and one of the big differences is a lot of the tyranny that exists in the United States is coming through the so-called private companies that really just answer to the government instead of the government directly itself.
Oh, absolutely. The whole country has been taken over by, corporations that absolutely are in lockstep with the government.
Well, and I mean,
100%.
in most cases, they're literally owned by parts of the government through their retirement funds.
BlackRock, BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard. We know that they own both sides of the media, every side of Big Pharma. It's sickening, and in Charlotte, it's just you can feel the walls closing in. I mean, there's a reason that I was outside with you, Ian, and nobody, and Aria, and a few others, Mr. Penguin. There's a reason I was outside on Thanksgiving in 2020 in 35-degree weather, raining sideways outside of the Attorney General's house. 2 years ago, almost, a year and a half ago. There's a reason I was out there.
Yeah, those are pretty entertaining video, by the way. People go to Free Keen on Odyssey, and they can search for the Attorney General or whatever it was, Thanksgiving, and that'll come up. Andy, hey, enjoy the ride. Thanks for the call tonight, man. Appreciate hearing from you. And
peace, man.
Maybe we'll see you in a few days. Phones are open here at 603-283-6160. We got to get more people who love liberty to get the hell out of wherever they are and get to New Hampshire and stay here and get active to help us have some freedom.
Be historical. Do something that nobody else has ever done, or help us try to.
Right. What do you want to tell your kids or your grandkids, right, that you did when the COVID thing was happening?
And I mean, these are times where real change is happening and possible. So if you're going to do it now.
Yeah, and the fact is you got to have numbers. You got to have people backing you up. And that's what the truckers are showing, right? Like the protests there in Ottawa, they couldn't have done it if it was 2 guys. Right, like if it was just a handful of trucks, that wouldn't have cut it. They had to outnumber the police, and then everything changes.
Yeah, it's like that moment from I think it was Ants, where the grasshopper's like, "No, we're going back there because we don't want them to figure out that they outnumber us 100-1."
Exactly. That changes everything. So we're going to continue here. You can join us. The number 603-283-6160. And we do have some news about the Ambassador Bridge protest, which police swarmed in on. They got the Bearcat out, the armored personnel carrier. They brought in dozens of armored troops.
And this was bound to happen.
We'll tell you how that went, or is still going, apparently. The number here is 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live. Free Talk Live's video archives have been on LBRY for years. LBRY is an uncensorable, decentralized, blockchain-based media sharing protocol, and we're big fans of it here on Free Talk Live. In 2020, LBRY launched Odysee, a video sharing website to compete with YouTube, and it's really taking off, now with over 1 million channels, many of whom are disaffected YouTube creators. During YouTube's crackdown for not towing the government line on COVID, the Free Talk Live YouTube channel started receiving strikes and could be completely taken down at any moment. Thankfully, Odysee started offering live streaming, so we're now streaming live every night and posting our video archives permanently to Odysee. You can watch live or anytime on our Odysee channel by visiting video.freetalklive.com. If you want to go all in, download the desktop app at lbry.com, and then every video archive you watch, you'll help seed and keep it online forever. At minimum, we ask you visit video.freetalklive.com and follow us on Odysee today. video.freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the week ended with the US sounding the alarm over Russia's intentions towards Ukraine. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said there is gathering intelligence to suggest an invasion could be close, telling American citizens to leave Ukraine by the end of this weekend and ruling out any prospect of a US military evacuation for any Americans left behind.
There is a very distinct possibility that Russia will choose to act militarily, and there is reason to believe that that could happen on a reasonably swift time frame.
President Biden, in an interview with NBC, underscored that he will not mount another Afghan-style rescue mission for Americans or other Westerners who get caught behind Russian lines.
What scenarios would you put American troops to rescue and get Americans out?
There's not. That's a world war. When Americans and Russians start shooting at one another, we're in a very different world than we've ever been in.
The Russians spent all week insisting they have no plans to invade Ukraine, do not seek to overthrow the government in Kyiv, and are open to ongoing diplomacy. Britain's Defence Secretary Ben Wallace was one of a host of European officials who trekked to Moscow for meetings with top Kremlin officials.
When they say to me they are not going to invade Ukraine, we will take that seriously. But as I've also said, we will look at the actions that accompany it.
But the US ended the week announcing it's sending 3,000 more troops to Poland. President Biden is at Camp David this weekend monitoring events, and open, White House officials say, to a phone conversation with Vladimir Putin. In other news of the week, Canada's Freedom Convoy of protesting truckers spread to the United States. That's the sound of a highway in Alaska being blockaded. The Premier of Ontario declared a state of emergency as thousands of truckers demanding an end to vaccine mandates and the resignation of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continued to besiege Ottawa and blocked bridges and land crossings between Canada and the US. The protests are securing funding and political support from the far right in America. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas spoke on Fox News.
The Canadian truckers are heroes. They are patriots, and they are marching for your freedom and for my freedom. Those truck drivers, that God bless them, they're defending Canada, but they're defending America as well.
Cressida Dick, the head of the Metropolitan Police, announced her resignation. She's been beset with difficulties for months and made the decision after the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, pulled the rug out from under her.
He has left me no choice but to step aside. I say this with deep sadness and regret.
And the US delayed plans to roll out COVID-19 vaccines for the under 5s. The Food and Drug Administration says the decision requires more study. From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. You dial in if you want. You can join us. Bring up whatever's on your mind. The number is 603-283-6160. It's Ian, Peakless Mountaineer, and Captain Kickass in the studio. And, of course, you can bring up anything. That's the point. We're going to go back to your phone calls and thoughts. And I do want to let you know, since we were talking with Dennis there, A moment ago, the the current organizer of the Porcupine Freedom Festival. He's a free stater who lives out on the seacoast, great activist. But it reminded me, we haven't been talking about Forkfest like we should. So we should get back on the subject of reminding our listeners
what the fork is that?
That Forkfest is coming up, and it's coming up right after the Porcupine Freedom Festival. In fact, it is the week that follows the Porcupine Freedom Festival. It's happening June 27th through July 3rd, and it is a little different than the Porcupine Freedom Festival. It's kind of like, I think it's sort of become... And there was a time when Forkfest was kind of like competing for being the number one freedom festival, because the Porcupine Freedom Festival had a few years where it was bad. There just weren't a lot of people coming to it at all. But now it's become huge. And I think it's really a big factor is COVID, right? COVID came in. A lot of people said, oh, my God, this is crazy, this tyranny. We got to do something. Oh, there's this thing called the Free State Project. I wasn't really serious about it before, but all right, let's go check out the Porcupine Freedom Festival. And that happened to a large extent last year for the first time for a lot of folks. And so Forkfest seems to have become like kind of like the after party.
It really is, yeah. At least the couple of years, I guess this will be my third year. But the last couple of years, and it's been fun, man. I mean, I've been able to simultaneously relax and party my ass off.
Yeah, I think it was a lot of it was a confluence of the COVID regime coming in at the same time as a major decentralization, whereas it had been a lot more centralized at Porkfest, and that kind of bled over into Forkfest and made sort of a competition there.
Right.
And I mean, I just have to say that the whole Forkfest thing really is like it's proof of concept of a voluntarist society, because you do get like, okay, if you want your family friendly, go up the hill. If you want sort of the parties, go down the hill. If you want to go into spiritual village, go over here. Mm-hmm. And it's very much like the kind of world where we want, where, okay, well, you have these values, you go over here with this community where they have similar values, and you can be part of that. And there's crossover, of course.
And the most important part is it's all self-regulated.
Right.
The most important part.
Right. I mean, Dennis was even mentioning how like there's this secondary market, and that's the thing. All of the market is free there. It's all free market.
Yeah, and for a lot of people, it's a real experience. I mean, the first time you ever attend one of these things, it's like if you've ever been to a libertarian convention before, this is nothing like that.
Right.
It's way more fun, number one, because you're in a campground instead of some stuffy hotel. And it's just kind of a totally different vibe than you're ever going to come across. So make sure you check out the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and then the second week you've got Forkfest. And if Porkfest, I shouldn't say if. I mean, it seems like a certain sellout this year. You can't make it to the Porcupine Freedom Festival? Well, come on out to Forkfest. It's a smaller event. There's no doubt. It's a fraction of the size of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, but Forkfest was the number one sponsor of the Porcupine Freedom Festival last year and the year prior to that. So, like, there's an awareness. People know that it's there. And I think that we're going to probably get some spillover. I would hope so. We're going to get some spillover.
Well, and I know some people plan their Forkfest excursion around their 4th of July vacation. So.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Well, that's right. So Forkfest ends on July 3rd.
Right.
And usually the hotel or the campground that we're at, they have a killer, and I mean killer, fireworks spectacular that they do that very same weekend. So expect that that's likely going to continue. I have not confirmed 100% with the campground owner but
we cannot promise explosions, but we expect them.
It's gone like 43 years in a row. So I mean, the odds are it's going to go this year too. So that's one of the nice perks about Forkfest is you have a cool, like, chilled out week hanging out with cool freedom people after the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and then it culminates in an amazing light show, an amazing fireworks show at the end of the weekend. So check that out at forkfest.party. Oh, and by the way, there are no tickets for Forkfest. Right. You just get your campsite from Rogers Campground, get your RV site, get your hotel room, which there's no way they're sold out at this point, and then you show up and have a good time.
And if there's something that you want to see at Forkfest, then bring it and do it. Don't have the expectation that somebody else is going to bring and do the thing that you want. Like, have the expectation that, hey, you know what? I heard that this isn't there or wasn't there last year, or, talk to people and find out what. And if there's something you want to see at Forkfest, bring it and do it.
Make it happen.
Yes.
That's kind of the idea behind it. So let's go back to your phone calls and thoughts. We're going to go first to Mark. He's calling us from Daytona Beach, listening to WNDB on the radio. Go ahead, Mark.
Hey, I just I've heard it's easier to fool somebody than it is to convince them they've been fooled.
That's true.
How do we get people to realize that this Pfizer thing is just making the government money and the government's in bed with the big pharmacy? I mean,
people
it's crazy.
absolutely double down on their decisions.
Yeah, people are going to believe what they're going to believe. I mean, if they have the, like you're saying, the double down effect, if they have bought this thing to the point where they've injected themselves 3 times, you're probably wasting your breath.
Yeah.
I am. I mean, I talk to people like, how can you be that stupid? It boggles the brain. Also, I'd like an address to physically mail cash to the Freedom Truckers in Canada. And if they ever start in the United States, I want to mail them double the money.
Yeah,
I don't trust
I know
PayPal.
you called about this, I think it was last week, and unfortunately, I have not seen anything like that. It seems like all of the fundraising is being done through Bitcoin at this point. The centralized fundraisers have absolutely failed, so mailing cash would be an alternative option that is pretty hard to stop. Technically...
Yeah, the governments and
they
the
can't
governments
trace it
and the
either.
banks
I mean,
are.
unless they keep the envelope, and I won't put my address on it. Screw them.
Yeah, the governments and the banks are definitely conspiring on this one.
Big time.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a story about that tonight where TD Bank is now freezing the accounts that have received money from the protest fundraisers. We had heard that TD Bank had already frozen some money like a week ago or more than that, but that it somehow had gotten released. Well, now they've frozen it again, apparently. And they have, according to Reuters.com, TD applied to the Ontario Superior Court of Justice on Friday to take the funds. So TD went to the court and said...
They want to steal the money.
Yeah.
That makes no sense at all to me or, well, anybody else who's thinking about it logically. They're treating protest as if it's terrorism, and they're two completely different things. The real terrorism here is, of course, the bank trying to take the money from that was contributed to the protesters.
Well, it's written in a very confusing way. And Mark, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate hearing from you. It's written confusingly, but let me give the next couple sentences here. So again, they applied to the court to take the funds, which were sent through GoFundMe and bank transfers, so they can be either sent to the intended recipients or returned to the donors, quote, who have requested refunds, but whose entitlement to a refund cannot be determined by TD, unquote, said the bank in a statement. Now, what this sounds to me like is what's called in civil court an interpleader. And I didn't know anything about interpleaders until a couple years ago. But what an interpleader is what it sounds like they're doing. And that is basically TD is saying, well, somebody told us that they have a claim on this money, but we don't know whose it is. We don't know if it's the person claiming that it's theirs or if it belongs to the account owner or whatever. So here's what we want. We want you to decide, court. Here's $1.5 million. We're going to send it to your bank account, the court's bank account, and then the people who want their refund or the people who say that it's their money that they earned, y'all get to fight it out, hire attorneys, and fight it out in court, and then a man in a robe will decide who gets the $1.5 million.
Hey, government, want to steal some money from your political enemies?
At the very least, they may not steal it, but they will tie it up in the court system for what is probably going to be at least another year before these things can get heard. There's no emergency.
So they'll steal it temporarily.
The TD stands for tyrannical douchebags.
Yeah. It actually stands for Toronto Dominion, but basically the same thing. So we got more coming up here in moments. Your calls and thoughts are welcome. The number 603-283-6160. This is Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live, the show where anyone can call about whatever they want. And we do mean anyone.
He bought a radiation monitor on eBay for $10.
You got to be kidding me.
A
Geiger counter?
Yeah. So I said, let's put some batteries in it and get it fired up. So we fired it up. We started walking
You guys
around.
know how to spend an evening.
Yeah,
Get a
right?
couple of beers and hang out with a Geiger counter.
we were making readings of 10 Roentgens outside the house.
What's that mean? Is that bad?
Yeah, it is.
Is that dangerous?
Yeah, it is.
Really?
Right.
Now, where's the life-threatening one?
100 Roentgens. I'm really concerned now because I've seen...
But you weren't concerned before you got the radiation meter out.
Right.
Now you're definitely going to get cancer, Harry. What's the detector going to do for you, though? Really? I mean, if you're going to die, you're going to die, right?
The guy that just called in about radiation, first of all, you got a Geiger counter off the internet.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
There are basically 2 types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, and the phones are open here. If you want, you can join us and take control of the airwaves. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And also want to make sure you know about Intercoin. We've been telling you about how Intercoin can help any business and organization launch their own currency or raise money using their own token. And now Intercoin has its own investor token available on a centralized exchange called X Markets. You can go to exmarkets.com, and all you need is an email address to sign up so you can keep your privacy intact, which is unbelievable as far as a centralized exchange is concerned. So check that out. You can deposit dozens of different cryptos there, and that includes Bitcoin. Trade them for Tether and use that Tether to buy ITR, which is the Intercoin Investor Token. You can learn more about the Intercoin vision at intercoin.org and buy or sell ITR on xmarkets.com. That's exmarkets.com. You just might be advancing the cause of liberty around the world. We're going to continue with your calls and thoughts. Ian Peakless Mountaineer and Captain Kickass all in the studio here. We're going to go back to the phones. We've got Jet calling us from Florida tonight. Jet, you're on Free Talk Live.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
It's time to play Say No Gov.
No Gov.
Or for the Spanish-speaking people, No Say Gov. Anyway, my job is to call in and help people understand the bogus nature of rulership. So I'm going to focus in on a small group of people who, well, are Satanists and all that. But before I do, I would just have to mention that there really is no such thing as local, state, or federal government. There are only people who have gathered into violent mafia-style gangs called agencies here in America. But, and here's the deal. These agencies are fictions, creations of the mind. They're only gangs that can exist inside of your belief system or thinking. That is, they only exist because you believe that they do. And except for their hired guns, you would most likely ignore them or laugh at their pompous dictates. So, there is this one group, and this is that time of the year, the notorious gang who calls themselves the IRS. And they absolutely do represent Satan.
No God.
And every year about this time, that we call the tax terrorism season, is where these terrorists abduct some famous personality who might have significant social influence and accuse them of the dastardly crime of tax evasion. But
not to be confused with tax avoidance.
Yeah, well, I haven't seen anybody particularly in the news lately, but they typically parade the hostage around over the media as a scare tactic, to swell up fear in the rest of us. But what most people don't understand is the bogus nature of the American tax system is actually limited under this bogus document we call the Constitution to only two types of robbery. One is apportionment, which means that everyone pays the same, and the other is excise, which is based upon a luxury or a privilege.
Mm-hmm. But we gave ourselves the power to do more than apportionment.
Yeah, the 16th Amendment, right?
Yeah.
No, they actually didn't, but they just decided to ignore those limitations and declare that earning a living, buying food or other necessities is a privilege, but it is not. So, you know how we say that all taxation is theft? I usually say it's robbery and extortion, but it's actually
That's
slavery.
more accurate.
It's actually slavery, which is collected under the threat of violence. And
robbery is a form of enslavement.
I'll have a little explanation, a little history of this thing. The initial intent of the tax system was similar to tariffs, in that they planned to steal a portion of the profits of foreign entities. But I think of it this way. Anytime someone or group demands that you give them a portion of your earnings, which was attained from your time and energy, they are demanding your time and energy, which then makes you a slave.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Especially if they keep coming back year after year after year, because otherwise it's just a robbery.
Yeah.
But now it's like a habit.
Yeah.
Chronic robbery.
Yeah.
In fact, the whole reason that mankind has anything, called loosely money, right? These things that we exchange, they're just supposed to be representative of the value of effort that you put in, your time, right? It's just it's a token of your time. It represents some effort that you put in.
Straight exchange, legal exchange.
And so when somebody takes your money from you, they're literally taking your life's effort away from you.
That's right.
That's correct.
And I do want to point out that there is also another very powerful fiction, along with what I have come to call the governed myth, is the corporation, which also it's a figment
Total
of our
fiction.
imagination. And if they were not so caught up with the mafia that you've mentioned, then we would probably laugh at their delusions and their imagination that they are not responsible for their actions.
Well, this is why I try to encourage people to avoid the word government. You can probably use the agency name.
No gov.
And with maybe the word gang or thugs or, that kind of thing in the end of
I
it.
like government.
IRS
That's a good one.
means.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it's
Which
new.
one?
Govern myth is what he is saying.
Governess?
Myth,
myth.
M-Y-T-H. Govern myth.
Oh, government myth. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, because it only exists in your mind. I mean, government doesn't do anything. It doesn't go down to the store. It doesn't drive a car. It doesn't speak. It doesn't do anything. So, but individuals, other humans in these groups, these satanic groups who get together, they're the ones who do the dastardly deeds.
Yes.
And that's where we really need to focus in on when we make reference to
It's a mass delusion of violence, justifying violence against their neighbors, and it's sick.
Yeah. So the last thing I always say is that people with titles have no more right to do anything than you or I. So have a good night.
Thank you, Jet, for the call. Always appreciate that thought because it's an important one to keep in mind.
Absolutely.
No gov.
Yeah. Let's continue here. Let's go.
I was playing the game. Is it over? Did I win?
You do. Let's go to El Pendejo calling from California. You're on Free Talk Live.
Hey, guys, can you hear me?
Yes. What's on your mind tonight?
Okay, well, just a quick news bulletin. You were talking earlier about the American convoy, and you had the caller on.
The theoretical American convoy. It hasn't started yet, and we're not sure when or if it will.
Exactly. Well, I don't know. I don't really know if you want me to plug this website. Can I say another website?
Yeah, whatever,
on the
man.
air?
It's Free Talk Live, bro.
That's right. It's called thehighwire.com, and the guy that founded it, he and some other people, he was the producer on the movie Vaxxed, and he was also the producer of a show on CBS called The Doctors, and he started to get into trouble and lose work because he was questioning vaccines. So now he has this website, thehighwire.com. It's part of this other group. And it comes on every week. It's, in my opinion, it's very good. It's the best single source I know of for information on COVID. If you're a COVID skeptic, he brings on scientists and all of this stuff and has long form interviews. But anyway, he was saying on the last show that somewhere in SoCal on March 5th, there's going to be a rally, anti-mandate rally. And then the day after, I think he said, the trucks are going to be leaving. I believe the destination is Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I have been hearing March 5th and March 4th are the dates that I've been hearing.
Interesting, because I've been hearing February 12th, which is today.
Well, and I've been hearing just recently in the last couple of days something about, surrounding the Super Bowl, which
would be awesome if they actually did that.
From like an activist perspective.
And a lot safer than surrounding D.C.
Yeah, if you want to, do something activist-like, in sort of a captive audience and something that the world arguably is paying attention to, the Super Bowl is it.
For sure. Of course, they're going to ignore it. I mean, it's not going to get a moment's coverage during the actual game. They're going to focus on the game and what's going on in the stadium, not what's happening outside.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and I just got to say, I do very simply love the idea. March 4th.
Oh, yeah, that
4th,
works.
right,
That
yes.
works. Hey, El Pendejo, thanks for the call tonight. I appreciate it. The number here is 603-283-6160. By the way, he told me he was watching us on Odyssey, which you can do over at watch.freetalklive.com. That
Because
actually
we
takes
are
you.
totally attractive people.
That takes you straight to the video feed itself, or you can go to video.freetalklive.com, and that will take you to our channel. You can follow us on Odyssey, and we sure would appreciate that. The number here, if you want to join us, 603-283-6160. More of your calls are coming up. We got a few lines open for you if you want to jump in here, get your thoughts on there about whatever's on your mind. Plus, we still have to talk about the Ambassador Bridge, and I know you want to talk about a secret Fed Reserve meeting on the way. If we get the chance, it's all coming up. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the week ended with the US sounding the alarm over Russia's intentions towards Ukraine. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said there is gathering intelligence to suggest an invasion could be close, telling American citizens to leave Ukraine by the end of this weekend and ruling out any prospect of a US military evacuation for any Americans left behind.
There is a very distinct possibility that Russia will choose to act militarily, and there is reason to believe that that could happen on a reasonably swift time frame.
President Biden, in an interview with NBC, underscored that he will not mount another Afghan-style rescue mission for Americans or other Westerners who get caught behind Russian lines.
What scenarios would you put American troops to rescue and get Americans out?
There's not. That's a world war. When Americans and Russians start shooting at one another, we're in a very different world than we've ever been in.
The Russians spent all week insisting they have no plans to invade Ukraine, do not seek to overthrow the government in Kyiv, and are open to ongoing diplomacy. Britain's Defence Secretary Ben Wallace was one of a host of European officials who trekked to Moscow for meetings with top Kremlin officials.
When they say to me they are not going to invade Ukraine, we will take that seriously. But as I've also said, we will look at the actions that accompany it.
But the US ended the week announcing it's sending 3,000 more troops to Poland. President Biden is at Camp David this weekend monitoring events, and open, White House officials say, to a phone conversation with Vladimir Putin. In other news of the week, Canada's Freedom Convoy of protesting truckers spread to the United States. That's the sound of a highway in Alaska being blockaded. The Premier of Ontario declared a state of emergency as thousands of truckers demanding an end to vaccine mandates and the resignation of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continued to besiege Ottawa and blocked bridges and land crossings between Canada and the US. The protests are securing funding and political support from the far right in America. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas spoke on Fox News.
The Canadian truckers are heroes. They are patriots, and they are marching for your freedom and for my freedom. Those truck drivers, that God bless them, they're defending Canada, but they're defending America as well.
Cressida Dick, the head of the Metropolitan Police, announced her resignation. She's been beset with difficulties for months and made the decision after the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, pulled the rug out from under her.
He has left me no choice but to step aside. I say this with deep sadness and regret.
And the US delayed plans to roll out COVID-19 vaccines for the under 5s. The Food and Drug Administration says the decision requires more study. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. The focus on Wall Street this week will remain locked on the Federal Reserve and its plans to curb rising inflation. Last week's consumer price index ticked up to a 40-year high, and the Fed has vowed to address price pressures. From FSN's business desk in New York, Will Denzelo with the preview.
Wednesday sees the release of minutes from the last Federal Reserve meeting. Investors are expecting the central bank to start raising interest rates soon, but these minutes could give further clues as to just how aggressively it plans to act. Many traders expect the Fed to take strong action in the wake of last week's consumer price index data. January's retail sales data is also due out Wednesday, and Wall Street analysts will be eager to see how the COVID-19 Omicron variant impacted US consumers. And earnings season rattles on, with the likes of Walmart, Alibaba and Airbnb all slated to release quarterly figures throughout the trading week. William Denslow, New York.
India's most populous state, Uttar Pradesh, has started holding elections. It's one of 5 states going to the polls in the next month. The elections will serve as a referendum on the popularity of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. From FSN's bureau in Delhi, Ishan Garg is covering that story.
With a population that rivals countries such as Brazil, Uttar Pradesh is key to winning national elections in 2024. Allegations of COVID-19 pandemic mismanagement are haunting the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party. Voters are also concerned about rising inflation and unemployment in the state. But analysts say identity politics may play a crucial role here.
There's only one big story we'll be watching in the coming week, and that, of course, is Ukraine and the US government's prediction on Friday that a Russian invasion may soon occur. FSN is on the ground in Ukraine, Moscow, Washington, Brussels and London, with full coverage here and on broadcast networks around the world. And that is the Week in Review from Feature Story News. Simon Marks reporting.
Shortly after members of the New York Police Department found a super sharp Buck brand pocket knife earlier this morning, Lieutenant Joseph Mattioli spoke to Onion reporters at the scene of the discovery to update the public on this potentially deadly blade.
At 8:40 a.m., police discovered what seems to be a pretty badass buck knife. Investigators believe it to be basically the deadliest knife ever.
Mattioli confirmed that the pretty cool wood-handled knife has a clean edge and added that the blade must be, quote, at least like 8 inches long.
At this time, we'd like everyone to be aware that there's probably a man out there with an eye patch and scars all over his face that has access to these knives, or maybe even a samurai sword. We urge people to be careful when approaching him because he may flip out and chop both your arms off before you even realize it.
Following the announcement, Mattioli asked people to come forward if they had any information about the owner of the knife or if they just wanted to hold it for a couple of seconds. For more on this story, check this week's Onion Review.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, kicking off the 3rd hour of the program. We're here on this live Saturday episode. And the number for you to dial in to join us, 603-283-6160. Coming up, we'll get into what happened today at the Ambassador Bridge, the biggest crossing between the United States and Canada. It's been shut down by protesters for pretty much almost a whole week. 5 or 6 days.
Is it really shut down, though?
Yes.
Like you
cannot cross.
Even though they were allowing like a lane for emergency traffic.
This one, they're not allowing that. I mean,
you're not. I can't imagine a scenario in which the ambulance is going to go from the United States to Canada.
Seems pretty unlikely. I mean, both Windsor and Detroit have their own ambulances, so that's probably not a problem there.
Okay.
But we'll talk more about what happened because the cops came in today with dozens of officers, it looked like, and armored personnel carriers to deal with the people that were on that bridge, but also, more people came in, more protesters, more peaceful protesters came in to back up the folks that were there. So we can get into that.
I did see a photo of a line of police and a line of
protesters,
arguably protesters, but in between them, sort of, Oreo sandwiched, were supposedly veterans, Canadian military veterans.
Yeah, that seemed to happen later on in the day. So we can get into
that.
That's
part of that? Okay.
Yeah. 603-283-6160 allows you to join us like Sarah in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live to start out our 3rd hour. Go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, yes.
I've been learning that, Spain, they have been conquered by the Moors or the Arabics for 500 years, and France was invaded by them for a while also. So that explains a lot of many of the Spanish words are actually Arabic words. Even the word Albuquerque, and a lot of the French culture is Arabic also.
Do you think that's bad?
It's just intriguing.
You think that's bad? You should look up how many times Afghanistan has been invaded and conquered.
Yeah, those invasions are actually the reason that castles and moats were built in the first place, was to protect people from a different ideology invading. Because
weren't they always they were inviting like the Uzbek Khan, also I don't know how to pronounce it. There was a part like north of Himalayas they were conquered. So a lot of the very Moorish culture is even goes far as like part of France. I think that's why they welcomed the Africans. The blacks were okay in France. And they still, to this day, they welcome Arabic people in France. They have a lot of Arabic people living in France right now. So,
the Arabic population was a big reason that Spain had its famous Inquisition.
There you go. Sarah, thanks for the call tonight. Appreciate it. Your moment of history tonight with Sarah. She actually seemed a little bit more informed than she normally does.
Yeah, it was nice.
She called in. Let's go to Richard. He's also in New Mexico. Richard, you're on Free Talk Live.
Yes, I want to comment about Ukraine.
Yeah.
All the news reports keep talking about when Russia is going to invade Ukraine, and I haven't heard anybody mention the possibility that could President Putin have built up the possible chance of war to see how NATO countries would react to all of this for Russian intelligence.
Yeah, this is a situation that obviously, those of us over here in the United States have to rely on various different reports. We don't know exactly what's happening there, but it does look like the U.S. federal government gang is trying to start a war. It seems like they are trying to rattle the saber enough to where this thing will turn into a war, and I hope that it doesn't.
Updated today at 10:12 a.m. Eastern from CNN, the criminal news network. Russia has amassed more than 100,000 troops near Ukraine's border in recent weeks. It says has surrounded Ukraine on 3 sides where an invasion could be launched.
Well, that's the kind of stuff they've been saying for weeks now. But now they've been acting like all of a sudden it's getting more serious. There's, according to the Daily Mail, an intelligence report, whatever that means, propaganda from the U.S.
Isn't that right?
Spies wouldn't lie to people.
Says that Vladimir Putin could invade Ukraine as soon as Wednesday. Where they get this information from, who knows? But they say that at this point,
but not Tuesday. That would be too soon.
Yeah, they say that at this point, Russia and the U.S. are pulling their diplomats out of the area. Of course, we already know that Biden has sent in thousands of U.S. troops into Eastern Europe, into places like Poland and Germany. So they're definitely...
They've been pulling their what's out?
Their troops?
Oh, they're diplomats.
Oh, they're diplomats. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, this is absolute nonsense. I mean, the Russian region of Ukraine, the ones that are culturally Russian, that speak Russian, they had a vote, and they elected, we want to join Russia.
Right.
And Putin said no, because he didn't want any of this to happen. He's like, no, I would love to let you in, but I think that would inflame too many tensions between me and NATO.
Wow.
And he had the opportunity then and did not take them. So this idea that, he's just going to swoop in and steal this chunk
doesn't make sense.
No.
And previous to this, this recent news, the president of Ukraine had been saying that he doesn't think that there's any sort of worry of an invasion happening. So it really makes it sound like it's all Biden and his administration trying to whoop up for the cries for war.
Yeah, and flirting with a third world war over a chunk of Eurasia, is insane.
When you're $30 trillion in debt, when you've become the largest empire ever on the face of planet Earth, when you routinely violate the freedoms of people and fail at doing anything resembling the bidding of the people, right? What are you going to do to get out of that, right? You created more tyranny with COVID, right? So what are you going to do to get out of that?
Let's have a war.
Yeah, the only thing the United States ever does when the S really hits the fan, I guess we'll have to bomb our way out of this one.
Boy,
Richard,
they're all talking about inflation. What do I do to distract
them?
Yep.
Thanks, Richard, for the call tonight. I do appreciate hearing from you. Of course, have any of you seen what Biden has actually tried to say about inflation?
No. Why would I listen to that buffoon?
It's not real. It's transitory. And if I print more money, it'll go away.
That would be way more like coherent than what he actually says. I mean, he just rambles like like you said, a buffoon.
I'd rather watch golf.
It's absolutely punishing to watch this man try to answer a question from a mainstream media person who dares to ask him about inflation. He cannot put a straight sentence together. He says something about, it's the corporations, or it's this or it's that. He blames everything but the printing of money, of course. And then like a moment later, he's just rambling off about something else. So he always changes the topic.
I would rather listen to Biden. I would rather listen to Fran Drescher's laugh for 12 hours straight.
This dementia patient elected because of the color of his skin and it being not orange.
Yeah, I wish I had a clip with me. I didn't know we were going to talk about it because
it's
punishing.
Do you remember when all the Democrats were like, we're tired of old white men running the country.
Let's elect one. There was another story I saw where people, even on the left, were saying that they don't care for Biden. It's just the best they can say about him is he's not Trump.
Right.
That's literally the best they can give the guy.
Well, and he's as establishment as you get, honestly.
Totally.
And that's what they wanted.
And like they used to say, well, at least he's not Trump. They don't say that anymore. They just say, well, he's not Trump. Because there's no more least about it.
Right. Because he's continued many of the Trump policies.
And made things much worse.
Yeah.
As all presidents do.
They do.
Regardless of the affiliation of the next person that gets in, the next chair occupier, right? They're going to make it worse because that's how governments work. They don't get better.
Oh, here's the clip I was actually thinking of. He calls this host on, I don't know what the hell station it was, but some TV host. He calls him a wise guy when he actually dares to ask him about, you said this was going to be transitory. You said this inflation was, going to go away or whatever. Well, it hasn't. What do you have to say for yourself, basically? And if I can actually find the actual clip here.
I'm the president. I don't answer to you.
Yeah.
You're people.
Yeah.
Answer to the public.
So I found an article about it, but it doesn't actually include the clip. I'll see if I can dig it up, because it's pretty ridiculous.
That's not how royalty works.
Right.
The number here is 603-283-6160. We got the Ambassador Bridge situation to talk about. That's on the way. Your calls and thoughts are also welcome here. Phones are wide open right now. Been busy all night. 603-283-6160. You can join us. This is Free Talk Live. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Are you tired tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it! You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
You can help more people hear the message of liberty by joining Free Talk Live's AMPS program on Patreon for as little as $5 a month. And you'll get access to special perks. Visit amps.freetalklive.com, amps.freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. You can join us here, and you can take control of the airwaves. Bring up whatever's on your mind. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. With you in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Beakless Mountaineer.
And the Reverend Captain Kickass.
And don't forget, you can join us online anytime you want. Just head on over to freetalklive.com. We have a ton of features there, including the chat server, which is a Matrix Chat, and it is our server. We run the thing. Matrix is an open source, decentralized, basically it's a federated system, so if you're on our server, you can still connect to other Matrix servers and vice versa. So head over to chat.freetalklive.com. You can get step-by-step instructions on how to get connected with us there over at chat.freetalklive.com. Let's go. We're going to go to your phones here, our phone calls in just a moment, but I did mention I found the clip with Joe Biden, his latest gaffe, trying to explain his way out of an inflation question.
Senile old man here on Free Talk Live.
Here he is. Oh, wait a minute. The audio's not playing here. Aria's got this blocker. Okay, here we go.
Inflation was going to be temporary. I think a lot of Americans are wondering what your definition of temporary is.
Well,
good question.
You're being a wise guy with me a little bit, and I understand that's your job.
Oh, that was it? These bums. They didn't include the whole clip. So, yeah, apologize. I didn't actually screen that.
What are you trying to make a jerk out of me?
But yeah, then he just goes on and just rambles after that for a little while. It's which
is probably why they cut it out of the clip.
Yeah, he cannot make a coherent point about inflation because either he honestly doesn't know what inflation is, or he's just straight up lying. And since he's a politician, he's probably lying.
And a lifelong one at that.
Yeah, but there's a chance he's just that ignorant too.
The only time I've ever actually seen him talk about inflation, he was talking about how his new Build Back Better bill will solve it. And it's like, do you not get how this works? Nah, you're lying. You're expecting that we don't know how this works, and that we don't know that if you print a bunch of money, it makes the inflation worse.
That's the definition of inflation, is inflating the money supply.
Well, and to be totally clear, because there is this, argument of which is the real inflation. So there's monetary inflation, which is what we focus on, because it leads to price inflation.
Yes,
and
correct.
Price inflation, I mean, even if it doesn't lead to price inflation somehow, then it's because we got so much better at creating these products that we managed to keep the price the same, even though there's more money chasing the good.
I want to go to Frank. He's on the line, and I believe he said he's a professional driver, or was. Frank, you're on Free Talk Live, calling from Arizona.
Hey, yeah, I'm kind of wondering if I was still driving, I would definitely want to be in support of the drivers and the freedom to choose. And my mom's from Ontario, and it really makes me very, very proud to see the Canadians standing up the way they are. My mother was a dual citizen. She was born in 1942. Her father was an American GI, and she became a dual citizen just to be able to vote in this country back about 30 years ago. And so, I just stand with the drivers and the truckers, and I want to see the tow truck companies. I know how they're independent, how they've got their government contracts with other police entities and their highway patrol. And I just want to see them, be patriots and back up the movement. And we all got to stand together, and we need to bring this system, to understand that we're liberty. This is America, and we believe in freedom. And if the Canadians can do it, we can do it.
Yeah, well, the nice thing is you don't have to be a driver to go and support these guys. Of course, it's a long drive from Arizona to get up to Canada, and as I understand it, they've got some pretty serious border restrictions as far as COVID mandates, so it's probably not worth the trip. But, if there's going to be one happening in your region, you don't need to have a full-on big rig truck to participate in this. There's a bunch of people that went in this convoy that were just driving their normal vehicles or normal trucks, whatever it is they drive with a family or whatever, getting the minivan.
Absolutely. I've got Interstate 10 that goes right by my house. I'm only about 5 miles away. So I know I'll be on the overpass waving a flag, that's for sure.
Yeah, and if you want to support the Canadian convoy without actually going there yourself, send them some Bitcoin.
Very good.
Okay.
And we did put up the link. Go ahead, Frank.
I just want to thank you for taking my call. And I'm on a group chat on Facebook, so a couple of my friends are watching with us.
Great.
And it's kind of a good Saturday evening to listen to you and watch you.
Thanks.
And support the guys.
Frank, I appreciate you being out there, and thanks for the call tonight. Definitely appreciate hearing from you. Okay, so I think I did find the actual clip where Biden goes off about inflation. Here's what he says.
What happened was let's look at the reason for the inflation.
Okay, here we go.
The reason for the inflation is the supply chains were cut off.
Nope. That's not what inflation is. As Peakless just explained, inflation is an increase in the money supply. Now, cutting supply chains definitely does not help prices.
It can definitely cause price inflation, which is what he wants us to
Let's
focus
just call
on.
it price increases.
Right.
I don't like using the term price inflation just because it sort of mixes the terms.
It's a price increase.
It's an increase.
It's not technically inflation.
Yeah. It's the same thing.
Well, the odds are that a lot of these things are not going to go down, right? Inflation suggests that, you can deflate. Well, these prices are probably not going down.
Well, it is possible, and if you deflated the currency, you would deflate the prices.
They're not doing that. And they have no plan to do that.
If we switch over to cryptocurrency, especially something that's deflationary, then that will deflate our money supply.
Well, they aren't going to do that.
Well,
we can use cryptocurrency, but they are not going to make any sort of change like that. But let's go on. So, again, he's going to blame the supply chain.
Meaning that the products, for example, automobiles, the lack of computer chips to be able to build those automobiles so they could function, they need those computer chips. They were not available. So what happened?
Why is that? Why are the computer chips not available? Is it because of the government restrictions that were placed on manufacturers in China that like the restrictions in the United States, slowed down the manufacturing or stopped the manufacturing process, quote unquote, due to COVID, and then delayed the shipments of all of these things out to where even though when they finally might have actually gotten shipped out, now they're sitting off of the coast of Los Angeles in a group of over 100 cargo ships with hundreds of thousands, if not 1 million cargo containers on them. Maybe the chips are in there somewhere, but because of government restrictions and government mandates, those things can't get into the country in any decent amount of time, even if they are sitting out there. So it's either the government of China and the government of the United States or some combination of those.
And you wouldn't localize such a vital good to 2 locations in its manufacture without government interference.
And let's just take a look at this in the macro sense of if it really were a free market, all of that cargo would be unloaded already.
Hell yeah, because they have an incentive to get it on trucks and move it. But a lot of the truckers are like, screw this, we're not going to come to work. Why? You want to mandate this vaccine? We're done. We're calling it a day. So there aren't enough drivers to even move the cargo that's coming into the United States. And who's to blame for that? Government regulations. Government gang, once again, getting in the way. And like you said, Peakless, it's the government regulations that drove a lot of manufacturing outside of the United States in the first place decades ago. Yep. That's not getting any better. Biden's not proposing to repeal any of that.
Right.
There's more coming up here. We'll continue his ramble in moments on inflation.
If you want to bring more liberty into your community, there's something you should see. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, break through. It's true. It's truly something new. If you'd like to see real prosperity, start your own currency, boost the economy. Intercoin, the movement you might want to join. If you like Bitcoin, its impact's hard to overstate, results you can appreciate. If you're tired of relying on the state, want to make your own community great, homelessness and hunger to eliminate, let the wealth accumulate. Don't wait for the growth rate to accelerate. Go to intercoin.org and get the coins for yourself.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the week ended with the US sounding the alarm over Russia's intentions towards Ukraine. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said there is gathering intelligence to suggest an invasion could be close, telling American citizens to leave Ukraine by the end of this weekend and ruling out any prospect of a US military evacuation for any Americans left behind.
There is a very distinct possibility that Russia will choose to act militarily, and there is reason to believe that that could happen on a reasonably swift time frame.
President Biden, in an interview with NBC, underscored that he will not mount another Afghan-style rescue mission for Americans or other Westerners who get caught behind Russian lines.
What scenarios would you put American troops to rescue and get Americans out?
There's not. That's a world war. When Americans and Russians start shooting at one another, we're in a very different world than we've ever been in.
The Russians spent all week insisting they have no plans to invade Ukraine, do not seek to overthrow the government in Kyiv, and are open to ongoing diplomacy. Britain's Defence Secretary Ben Wallace was one of a host of European officials who trekked to Moscow for meetings with top Kremlin officials.
When they say to me they are not going to invade Ukraine, we will take that seriously. But as I've also said, we will look at the actions that accompany it.
But the US ended the week announcing it's sending 3,000 more troops to Poland. President Biden is at Camp David this weekend monitoring events, and open White House officials say to a phone conversation with Vladimir Putin. In other news of the week, Canada's Freedom Convoy of protesting truckers spread to the United States. That's the sound of a highway in Alaska being blockaded. The Premier of Ontario declared a state of emergency as thousands of truckers demanding an end to vaccine mandates and the resignation of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau continued to besiege Ottawa and blocked bridges and land crossings between Canada and the US. The protests are securing funding and political support from the far right in America. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas spoke on Fox News.
The Canadian truckers
are heroes. They are patriots, and they are marching for your freedom and for my freedom. Those truck drivers, that God bless them, they're defending Canada, but they're defending America as well.
Cressida Dick, the head of the Metropolitan Police, announced her resignation. She's been beset with difficulties for months and made the decision after the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, pulled the rug out from under her.
He has left me no choice but to step aside. I say this with deep sadness and regret.
And the US delayed plans to roll out COVID-19 vaccines for the under 5s. The Food and Drug Administration says the decision requires more study. From bureaus worldwide, this is FS.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live, phones are open. You can join us. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And in the studio tonight, it's Ian.
Peakless Mountaineer.
And the captain.
You can bring up whatever you want. We're going to go back to your phone calls and thoughts, but I do have the remainder of this ridiculous ramble by the president, Joe Biden. He could barely put a sentence together, but yep, he's the president in the United States.
You mean His Majesty?
Whatever you want to call him.
He's closer to a king than he is anything else.
King Poopy Pants?
That's the one.
They say he wears a diaper.
People sniffer. Kid sniffer. Kid
too.
sniffer, Poopy Pants.
That too.
Let's not forget.
Let's go to, and by the way, I have no respect for any presidents. I don't want to make it sound like I'm just attacking Joe Biden. I don't want any. I don't need a president. I don't want a president. I have no interest in
I'd like to try them all for war crimes.
I'd just like to have them leave me alone. That would be sufficient if they would just leave people alone who would like to be left alone. Like, if you want a president, go ahead and have yourself have two of them. I've
had plenty of presidents. I don't want to try anymore.
Yeah. That's a good one. So let me go back to this interview with Lester Holt from NBC. He asks Biden about his definition of temporary, because Biden kept talking, last year or whatever, about how, the inflation's temporary. He says, well, okay, what's your definition?
Transitory.
What's your definition of temporary? Mm-hmm. And so then Biden goes off on a ramble about inflation, and he blames it on the supply chain. But let's continue.
So they could function, they need those computer chips. They were not available. So what happens? With the number of cars that were reduced, the new cars reduced, it made up at one point 1/3 the cost of inflation because the price of automobiles were up.
1.1/3 the cost of inflation because of automobiles, huh?
Sounds completely coherent to me.
Okay, let's keep going.
So what I did when I went out and made sure we started to make those domestically, we got Intel to come in and provide $20 billion to build a new facility. A number of organizations are doing the same kinds of things.
When can American...
A number of organizations are doing the same kinds of things.
One.
That is a number. Yeah.
Hey, there you go. More spending. That'll solve the inflation.
Did he just say they gave Intel $20 billion to build chips?
That wasn't real clear, was it?
That's kind of what it sounded like.
It wasn't clear.
And I mean, let's say hypothetically he was right about this. Oh, it's the supply chain. It's just that. Gee, what screwed up our supply chain? Could it be that you locked the entire population in their house for a year?
Yep, that's a factor.
As did many governments around the globe.
Yep, and then, of course, all the fear surrounding that they ginned up, all the fear surrounding this cold/flu that people have been getting variants of for, ever. All of a sudden
the
now...
0-micron virus.
Right, now
because it doesn't exist.
Everybody has to have maximum freakout mode turned on. So whenever somebody catches this thing, whoa, if it's a workplace, we got to shut the whole place down. If it's a manufacturing facility, we got to close down the manufacturing facility for a week.
Have you guys done this yet? Like, you go into a heavily populated, like a store or something, and just to see what would happen, you just sort of you fake a sneeze.
No.
And see all the heads turn and look at you immediately as if you are the patient number one, patient zero.
Have you done this?
I've done it. Yeah, I like to mess with people every now and again. Just to see how over it are you.
They're not.
No, nobody's. Everybody's all. You can fake a sneeze. It's not
convincing.
Right? Well,
then again, I guess if someone's scared enough, that sounded like a sneeze.
Let's go to David. He's in New Mexico. You're on Free Talk Live, David.
Yeah, the inspection of public records issue that you dealt with in the case of immolation man. But
Thomas Ball, who self-immolated in front of the courthouse here in Keene, New Hampshire in 2011.
I was thinking of Demolition Man, where you get fined for cussing. And
that's a fun movie, though.
It is a good movie. It's actually quite...
He doesn't know about the 3 seashells.
That's right.
Right, quite more of a prophecy than it intended to be.
Really
Anyway.
did predict the future very accurately.
Yeah, the Zoom calls and all.
Go ahead, though.
Yeah, so I wrote some notes, and they're not perfectly organized, but they're organized enough that I can go through them quickly, and you'll get my point, and there may be some additional helpful information in there that you may want to comment on. But let me throw this in because it was what you were just talking about. I wrote, it's perfectly clear our recent history of governments are incapable of governing to the standard required by the highest law of the land, whether or not you agree with that. Highest law of the land, which at this time is binding. So they're in default. The government is in default. They need to be dissolved and replaced with whatever.
Let's not replace them. Let's just stop with the dissolving and leave it there, shall we?
Amen.
No,
let's replace them with voluntary alternatives for their services.
There you go.
We dealt with that issue previously, Ian. Actually, that solution actually fits your prescription, Ian, because we, the people, replace it with whatever we damn well please, which can be nothing according to the Declaration of Independence. So it fits with your prescription. But so going on to Thomas Ball, and I was going to ask you to do what you already did, which was to explain to your audience who this guy is, because he did his suicidal act for a reason, to send a message so that people could understand what's going on in the government courts, especially in his case, family and children's courts. And you had tried to get some public records in the form of videotape, which was denied to you. And I'm not clear, was that ultimately denied completely, or did you eventually get that videotape?
It was denied completely. They did not hand it over, sadly.
Okay. So then, and once again, whether or not we agree with this prescription, it is possible to go to a higher controlling court and file a writ or a petition for whichever kind of writ of injunction. And there's an injunction test. One of the tests is if there is a compelling public interest that is in your favor. I would say there is a compelling public interest that videotape evidence not be denied to you. And also another part of the test is will there be irreparable harm done? I would say that by denying that evidence in the form of that videotape would do irreparable harm to the nation, to the people. We have a right to know, which leads to the next thing. Yeah. The family, the court cited that it would be disturbing to the family. One, I never promised you a rose garden for one thing, and the family's claim, and I'm going to argue it's an unlawful claim. I have sympathy for them, but I'm going to argue that it's an unlawful claim. The family who has no standing, no claim to what this individual did. It doesn't, just like his money doesn't necessarily belong to them, or any writings that he did. His actions do not belong to them. They are his own, and they have no right, whether it's disturbing or not, to deny to the rest of society the benefits of having that evidence released. Oh, evidence, that's a thing. I would say that the state, which is I would argue criminally negligent and malicious in this act, the state unlawfully, negligently, and or maliciously trafficked this man's children, leading to him to publicly burn himself to death. And the state has a conflict of interest, tampering with evidence style, in denying access of the public to that video evidence of what Thomas Ball did to make a point. By
the way, I did just search Free Keene, which is the website that I blog, and I did a very lengthy piece about Thomas Ball shortly after his self-immolation. I spent a lot of time and went down to the courthouse. I looked at his files, which were humongous. I mean, if you've ever seen a court file, usually it's relatively short. This was stacks and stacks, years of papers that I spent a few hours combing through. And I actually did an update about this. Happened back in 2011. It was June of 2011 when he killed himself. I went in, I think the following day is what I said. I went to the sheriff's and requested a copy of the footage from the security camera. The next day, I went in there. I was told that it had been given to Keene police. Now, apparently, while the statement was true, they could have made another copy for me, but instead misdirected me to Keene Police. I then filed a Freedom of Information request with Keene Police and was told after a few days they had returned their copy to the sheriff. I then filed the same request with the sheriff, and after a few days was told they had destroyed their copy.
Isn't that convenient?
That's a civil rights violation.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't know any attorneys at that time, and I didn't take this. We did go to court over this, but I, represented myself and ultimately lost. And
the government violate your rights. Shocker.
And I have no experience appealing to the Supreme Court, so that's where it ended, unfortunately. But I agree with you; it was absolutely a violation of the right to free press. Thank you, David. There's more coming up on Free Talk Live. The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com.
I'm crazy about My Magic Mud. This is the most important oral care product created this millennium, and I'm not kidding. We all have different opinions on politics and issues, but we all have mouths. And I want yours to be as clean as possible, with teeth as bright as they were meant to be. I will never be without My Magic Mud. It's a little surprising, but man, does it work. If you only listen to one thing I say ever, go to mymagicmud.com and get 20% off with code FTL. mymagicmud.com, code FTL.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. chat.lrn.fm.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer-term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live. The phones are open. If you want to join us here in the remaining moments, you can do that. The number is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. It's Ian Peakless Mountaineer and Captain Kickass in the studio. And you can join us online anytime you want. Head over to freetalklive.com. You can go to feeds.freetalklive.com, and that's where you will find our RSS feed. So if you want to subscribe to Free Talk Live as a podcast, which means we will automatically send to you the latest episodes as they are released.
I thought feeds was where you could go and like buy a host dinner.
Afraid not. But you could probably like share your cryptocurrency addresses on our social media platform, Captain, and then maybe somebody will buy you dinner.
Oh, it's just
a possibility.
It's just Kickass at Edge.
Okay, but most people don't know what a FIO address is. You might want to make a post over at social.freetalklive.com.
Okay.
But meanwhile, you can check out the feeds over at feeds.freetalklive.com, and you can subscribe to our podcast. Drop one of those feeds into your favorite podcast client. So all night, we've been saying we're going to talk about the Ambassador Bridge situation. Yeah. For listeners not familiar, we've covered a lot about the truckers in Canada.
Cross that bridge now?
Well, maybe. I don't know. Apparently, they've been trying to clear it out today with some, I don't know how many trucks have been parked on that bridge for the last several days and have essentially shut down all traffic coming across to Canada. So they're parked on the Canadian side. I don't know what, if anything, has been happening on the U.S. side of the bridge, but definitely on the Canadian side, they have been parked, and they're making it so no one can get through. And now today, the police showed up in large numbers with armored truck as well as other toys. They have, from what I saw, one report said they had snipers that were positioning themselves up on the customs building nearby. So big-time show force by the police department. Last night, the police had sent out notices. They walked around, because there's people there all the time, right? Like, it's not just people in their trucks. There's protesters or standing around, hanging out. So Ontario police walked around last night handing out notices that basically said, come midnight, you will be subject to arrest due to the province of Ontario declaring a so-called state of emergency, which makes it illegal and punishable to block and impede the movements of goods, people, and services along critical infrastructure. Fines can raise up to $100,000 and up to a year in prison. So they went around and handed out these threats to everybody that was on the bridge.
That's the thing about governments, is they generally will write you a very sternly worded letter right before the violence.
Yes. That's because they prefer to not have to be shown doing the violence. They'd rather you just obey.
Well, that's how you know they're the good guys. That they're the ones with the moral authority beyond that of any mortal man.
By the sternly worded letters that they write?
Exactly.
Or
I mean,
poorly worded?
Mere thugs will just take your money.
Yeah.
But they have a bureaucracy to take your money.
So what happened today? It's hard to get the true story, right? Because you have to kind of jump around from different media sources, see what the videos are like online from the individuals.
Do we got a man on the street or something?
I don't have a man on the street, but I have been kind of checking in throughout the day today. And from what I saw, there was a mainstream media reporter who, to be fair, was actually there posting raw videos of what was going on. And actually, one dude came up and said, there's like a whole minute-long video that he posted where a guy says thank you for actually like reporting what's really going on here. And according to him, the police had gone to each truck that was on the bridge and, issued whatever threat they were going to issue, and then they moved them off one at a time without making any arrests. So they
moved
did
the people or moved the trucks?
The trucks. They got the trucks. They convinced the truckers to move off the bridge.
Oh,
according to this guy.
So they didn't like bring in a tow truck and physically move the trucks themselves. They convinced whoever the pilots were of these trucks to move.
Correct.
I'd hate to trouble you there, eh?
That's what they're very nice when they do
totally
these things.
Sorry.
But that's
Sorry
not
about the revolution there.
And that's what the mainstream media is reporting. However, there's also the other story that there's a ton of people on foot who, once they heard that the police were handing out threats last night, their numbers went up. So there's more people that showed up in the last 24 hours to the Windsor or the Ambassador Bridge to back up the people that were on the bridge. And ultimately, even though the people that were on the bridge left over some number of hours today, the people who are still there as protesters are still, last I saw, like before the show or whatever, they were still there. Like the last videos I saw, the sun was going down, and like there's still a bunch of people there, and there was like a line. I think you saw some of this earlier today. There was a line of cops on the bridge, and then there was a line of protesters, and at some point a line of dudes in military fatigues showed up, but like retired guys.
Yeah.
So they were on the side of the protesters. So it's like, kind of like a standoff between the armed cops and then the military dudes who are retired standing for the protest. I don't know what happened as a result of this. So there could still be this standoff going on, or who knows? I don't know what the latest is.
We know what government will do because government only has one thing, one tool in their toolbox. They don't even need a toolbox for it. They only have one tool, and that tool is coercion.
Oh, if you're going to lump it all together, sure. I mean, they've got multiple tools: bureaucracy, threats, kidnapping,
and they
murder.
are all based on the threat and use of violence.
Yeah.
Everything government does, I don't care if it's the Canadian government, if it's your local Department of Natural Resources, if it's your public schools, if it's a government entity, the only thing that it uses to get its way, and it uses it frequently, is the threat and use of violence.
Yeah, I got to say, that is one thing that I have not heard anyone talk about, and I have been terribly curious about, is the armed aspect of this. Like, are people going to Ottawa armed or unarmed?
Right,
because,
are there people open carrying? Or
difference.
They don't have the same gun freedoms in Canada that we do in the United States. As I understand it, and by no means am I an expert, so if you actually live in Canada and you want to clarify this, handguns are pretty much a no-go, but you can own like a rifle if you have the right permits or whatever in some provinces. So you probably cannot open carry that rifle. That would be my guess. But not the same level of gun freedoms. But nonetheless, it's been a very peaceful protest in Ottawa and on the bridge as well. I think what they're doing here is really interesting. Like, I can't blame any one person for breaking rank and saying, you know what, I didn't come here to get arrested. I mean, I knew I was risking it, but now they're going to actually like throw me in the clink, and I got a family. So don't blame somebody for putting their truck in gear and getting off that bridge. But what they're doing here with having a bunch of other people show up, just men on the street and women on the street, is you're increasing the numbers, right? Because on the bridge there was only so many trucks, right? I don't know what the total number was, but you can only fit so many trucks on a bridge.
Could be 2-4 trucks blocking the way.
I think it was probably like a dozen, but I don't know. But they rolled all those trucks off there. Well, you only got a dozen individuals there, whereas on the ground, you can have dozens and dozens, if not 100 plus. In the video I saw, there seemed like a solid number of people there. I'm going to guess over 100, maybe more than, maybe 200 people that were there. And, of course, there were several dozen cops as well. But once again, coming back to what we were talking about earlier, if you can outnumber the police, they tend to start behaving very cautiously instead of just, blasting tear gas and going crazy as they want to do. But again, just depends.
Yeah, I mean, they can arrest a dozen people. It's real hard to arrest 100 people all at once.
I'm glad you mentioned it because I just want to point out that the easiest thing to do is to outnumber the government because there are very few of them.
It's easy in theory, but you have to have the people willing to take the risk.
Yes. But I'm just saying that the numbers are in the everyman's favor.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm glad that people are getting fed up enough that they are willing to take this risk.
So we'll keep an eye on how this develops. Again, 200 people linking arms together, standing across the bridge. It's going to be a lot harder to deal with than moving 12 guys and some trucks.
Yeah,
so
profoundly courageous of those people.
I know you wanted to talk about it. We're less than a minute down here. What's going on, or what do you think is going on with the Federal Reserve on Monday?
Well, so and it's hard to find the information on it, but they did publish that they are having a closed meeting. So basically a secret meeting. It's an expedited something or other, so it's a secret emergency meeting of the Federal Reserve. And I mean they've been sort of talking about and like, are we gonna my personal prediction is that I think that they're going to announce after this meeting, they're going to announce that they are going to increase the federal funds rate, and that because of that, both cryptocurrency and the stock market are going to drop. So that's what I think's about to happen.
Well, one of the other things they've been doing recently is talking a lot about the central bank digital currency as well. They released a paper about that just last week.
That is a definite possibility as well. Either way, get ready for a new depression, everyone. The orchestrated takedown of our economy is tentatively scheduled for Monday.
Well, we will find out what happens, and for now, we are out of time, but we're back tomorrow night with a live Sunday episode. Captain, you'll be heading that up tomorrow night. I heard a rumor that Mark Edge might be back for that episode.
We'll see.
So we will see about that, and in the meantime, you can join us online between now and then over at freetalklive.com. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
This is the Liberty Radio Network, broadcasting the latest liberty-oriented audio content 24 hours a day at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks with the Week in Review. And the week ended with the US sounding the alarm over Russia's intentions towards Ukraine. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said there is gathering intelligence to suggest an invasion could be close, telling American citizens to leave Ukraine by the end of this weekend and ruling out any prospect of a US military evacuation for any Americans left behind.
There is a very distinct possibility that Russia will choose to act militarily, and there is reason to believe that that could happen on a reasonably swift time frame.
President Biden, in an interview with NBC, underscored that he will not mount another Afghan-style rescue mission for Americans or other Westerners who get caught behind Russian lines.
What scenarios would you put American troops to rescue and get Americans out?
There's not. That's a world war. When Americans and Russians start shooting at one another, we're in a very different world than we've ever been in.
The Russians spent all week insisting they have no plans to invade Ukraine, do not seek to overthrow the government in Kyiv, and are open to ongoing diplomacy. Britain's Defence Secretary Ben Wallace was one of a host of European officials who trekked to Moscow for meetings with top Kremlin officials.
When they say to me they are not going to invade Ukraine, we will take that seriously. But as I also said, we